This time we have this little society menace who was reincarnated like any 17-year-old Japanese loser to save some other world. She goes to the sky with a thick goddess who explains the cliche stuff and gives everyone a talent. Then he and his friends get into a nice chill kingdom, but strangely he gets reincarnated. He goes back to the thick goddess who gets confused, but according to the sky rules, she has to give him a new talent. And then that shit repeats like 10 times, and every time he gets a new broken-ass talent. When he's getting bored of the loop, he finally gets to actually stay in one of the worlds, but there he's trash, or at least that's what everyone thinks. Bro hid his talents like I hide my Reddit history from my grok girlfriend. Thank you, Alon, she's cute. This kingdom was a trucking trap. Everyone wanted to kill the heroes. His instructor was this thick blonde 2.0, and our boy Takafuji had to be very L with 4D chess moves to avoid getting caught and at the same time not be considered so trash to the point of being executed. Little spoiler, Takafuji's fight with thick blonde 2.0 was insanely epic. I'm done with spoilers, let's get it. The girl with red eyes approaches and someone calls out the name Linori. She places her hand on his face and he seems confused, wondering who she is. Blood flies and she has killed the boy. That one lasted a long time. She drops the knife and falls into some kind of void. The boy wonders if he really got stabbed, why she was crying, and how she knew his name. Amidst these questions, suddenly, he wakes up back in the classroom, reading a manga. Our protagonist's name is Takafuji Linori, 17 years old. He's confused, not knowing what that dream was, but he's in the same classroom as always. The days were the same, or at least they should have been. Suddenly, a magic circle surrounds the entire classroom, and a burst of purple energy explodes. Everyone covers their faces, and Takafuji then finds himself with his hand on the floor, not knowing what's happening. He is now next to his classmates, unable to understand how they ended up there. Obviously, everyone is screaming in panic, wanting to know where their classroom went. At that moment, an angel appears, telling everyone to calm down. They were in the path of souls, known as the void between worlds, and she was what people usually called a goddess. All of them had been summoned to another world to become heroes who would defeat the Demon King. So far it seems cliche, but pretty soon it will get kinda crazy. The guys are standing there looking dumbfounded, wondering what this hero business is. She then explains that they will be transported to a world called Burge, in an empire called Hyjin. The fools are standing there with their mouths open, not understanding much of it. Meanwhile, Takafuji can only think about how this is just like the plot of any random story. However, the angel continues explaining that soon they would leave this place and arrive in that other world. But before that happened, they would all receive a gift. Her hand appears over each of their heads, and she tells them that with this, they will receive a special ability. They should be careful not to be corrupted by this power and lead people the right way. She wishes them good luck, and the scene shifts to the castle. Slowly, Takafuji opens his eyes and finds himself in a room with everyone else. A slightly tired-looking girl says that, apparently, the summoning was a success. The old men around them all celebrate, saying that the saint is truly reliable. Now the world would finally become a safe place again. Or so they say before telling everyone to be quiet. A man stands up and thanks them all for coming to this world. His name is Leisen, and he is the Emperor of Hyjin. The guy even kneels, and together with everyone else, he begs them to defeat the Demon King. Takafuji notices that at least they are being treated as nobles. At that moment, a glasses-wearing fool steps forward and asks His Majesty not to act like that. He then says he wants to ask if there's a way for them to return to their original world. Someone steps forward and says they will answer that. The girl introduces herself as Saint Aaliyah and says that they can indeed return to their original world. However, that would only be possible in a month when the full moon is in the sky again. And so anyone who didn't intend to fight the Demon King could stay peacefully in the royal castle for a month and then go back home. Our boy is thinking that this feels like a tourist trip to explore another place. The girls are wondering what will happen during the month they won't be there. According to the Saint's explanation, the timeline of that world won't change, and they will be sent back to the exact same place. Our boy is thinking that all of this seems way too convenient. Something feels off. Then the Saint asks who wants to return after a month and says they just need to say so and no one will stop them. The group looks like they want to speak up, but she just pleads with them to save her country and this world. Takafuji thinks that normally, this is the moment when some hero wannabe steps forward and declares they will fight for them. But here there's only silence, meaning it looks like his class doesn't have a hero. The guy with glasses then says that everyone seems a little uncertain and asks if they can make this decision later. The king is there with his eyes closed, and our boy just notices that for now, everyone is pretty calm. Then Leisen says that in 1 month they will be able to choose whether they want to return to their world or sign a contract to become heroes here. Today is a celebration, so they should enjoy themselves. Our boy thanks them and immediately goes to try the food. Tasting another world's cuisine is perfect. He's excited to find out what ingredients are used in a fantasy world. But suddenly, the same portal that appeared beneath his feet in the classroom shows up again. He assumes it must be the work of the Empire's mages, who have already mastered their magic to this extent. He's truly eager to experience everything in this fantasy world. But then someone calls out to him. They want to know why he is the only one with a circle beneath his feet. Before he can process what's happening, he finds himself back in the same place where he met the saint, the so-called Path of Souls. The The blonde appears, introducing herself, but seems a little confused. He greets her, saying they've met again, but she asks if he wasn't just here a moment ago. He replies that he was. The poor girl doesn't quite understand why this is happening. He wants to know if he's about to be summoned somewhere else, and she says probably. The problem is, there's a rule that everyone who steps into this place must receive a talent, so she places her hand on his head once again. She wishes him good luck, but our boy complains that being sent back and forth like this is irresponsible. During this whole process, he remembers that the previous circle was purple, while this one is yellow with different symbols. Then he realizes he's tied to a chair, gagged, and figures this is no time for analysis. An old man approaches, saying that it looks like the summoning was a success. Another one beside him says the boy will be called test number 12. The old man comes closer, commenting that it seems he has an offensive type magic eye. Being referred to as a test subject, Takafuji was not interested in this situation at all. It seemed these summonings were much more dangerous than he had imagined. The two lunatics start smiling, saying they will now proceed with the experiment. It's more than obvious to our boy that this is one of those crazy scientists. The man steps forward with his scalpel, saying it's time to find out what his magic eye is all about. The old man explains that there are records stating that humans summoned from another world develop a magic eye upon arrival, and his job is to prove that it's true. Our boy quickly realizes that this so-called magic eye must be the gift he received from the goddess when he arrived in this world. The old man stretches out his hand, explaining that it would be problematic if the boy had an outburst of rage or lost control. That's why he will be put into hypnosis. For a second, Takafuji is startled, but then he just watches the man casting his magic circle. The old man realizes that not only is the effect minimal, it actually seems like it's not working at all. The problem is, this is supposed to be an advanced hypnosis spell. Takafuji finds it ridiculous that this is what they call advanced magic. At that moment, the other man calls for the doctor. Takafuji's left eye holds the magic eye of time, while his right eye contains the magic eye of truth. The man is shocked and celebrates, saying that possessing two eyes of such caliber is extremely rare. Immediately, they pull out their tools, saying they must begin testing right away because this is incredible. However, Takafuji knows that if they start surgery without hypnosis, it's nothing short of torture. He absolutely does not want that to happen and wonders if he can escape using his magic eye. Suddenly, a circle appears beneath his feet. The scientists look confused, but our boy and we already know exactly what's happening. He appears before the goddess, who is once again looking like a fool. She says this is the third time and asks if he likes her that much. Our boy just says it's inevitable. Then he questions whether she has any idea why this is happening. She doesn't really know what to say, admitting that this is the first time something like this has happened, and she will have to investigate further. Takafuji realizes that by now he has seen this woman so many times that he is casually chatting with a goddess. But before he can get any answers, he appears before a young noble girl. An elf praises her, saying it's incredible that she managed to summon a humanoid monster on her first try. However, our boy did not appreciate being called a monster. In this world, he was treated like a creature and almost forced into a subordination contract. But then the magic circle activated again. He reappears in front of the goddess, already smiling. She asks if he's not tired of all this. Our boy just wants to know why the summoning keeps happening over and over again. She then said she had an idea, but there was little time, so she would have to explain it briefly. She explained that the targets of a summoning must have a strong soul that is necessary to cross between worlds, and it seems that the boy had an extremely strong and rare soul. Takafuji said that he wasn't even a saint or a good person, so it was strange that he had such a pure soul. She said it wasn't about purity, but simply that he was strong. What he needed was for his soul to bind to one of these worlds to activate the hero's contract, and then this would stop happening. The scene then shifts to a castle, where a girl holding an orb says that he now has the ability to steal abilities. He is impressed by the girl's beauty, and in this fourth summoning, he received another gift. He ran straight toward her to form the hero's contract, but before he could start, the teleportation activated again. On the fifth time, he was summoned through dark magic. The girl was exhausted, sweating with her clothes all torn, while he appeared completely relaxed, at the top of a castle on the peak of a mountain. On the sixth summoning, he was brought as the resurrected demon lord, and all the monsters celebrated. But now, back in the sky, the angel commented that he had been accumulating incredible abilities. He was impressed, but then she said that the next summoning would probably be the last. That's why she would now combine all his abilities, and when he was summoned again, he should check his status. He would probably be able to see it with his right eye. Inside a castle, someone welcomed the hero. He calmly opened his eyes, thinking, here we go again. But suddenly, he was now with other people in this place. A high school student named Ryu Shinzaki and another girl named Tamaki Kurosawa. She called out to her friends, and a final girl named Ewe Isogai appeared. At that moment, someone on the throne spoke. The king said that according to legend, they must be heroes. The protagonist noticed that everyone summoned here knew each other, except him. Everyone was wondering why he was summoned randomly among these three. They all turned to the king, who questioned if the three of them were the heroes and he was just an extra person brought along. The other three confirmed, and the man said this was the first time he had heard of such a thing. Then another girl arrived, asking if they were the heroes from the other world. She introduced herself as the first princess and personally took credit for summoning them, saying they should be grateful. Our boy immediately realized that this one was one of those annoyingly self-important princesses. She then informed them that they were now in the kingdom of the rising sun, a place where not only humans existed but also demi-humans and demons. Obviously, the demons were the enemies, led by the Demon King. They had their own nation and were invading all territories. That demoness really seemed dangerous. Be careful, young mortals. That was why all of humanity had joined forces to summon heroes. However, only women of royal blood could do it, and of course, she was the chosen one. Each country was obligated to train the heroes they summoned to kill the Demon King. They must have realized by now what a brilliant plan this was. However, Takafuji understood that their plan was just to summon a bunch of heroes and hope someone would take care of things. The princess asked them to become stronger as representatives of this kingdom and to kill that shameless Demon King. At that moment, Tamaki spoke up with a question. How were they supposed to return to their original world? The princess simply said that was impossible. After all, they should feel honored to be the proud heroes of the kingdom of the sun and should be grateful for their situation. Our boy was fuming, thinking that these bastards needed to take some customer service lessons from the kingdom of Hyjin. The king then told them to place their hands on the stone to discover the talents they received as heroes. The tablet was brought forward, and when Ryo placed his hand, he received the limit break ability. Aoi Isogai received the magic barrier ability, and Karasawa got magic affinity. Meanwhile, our dear Takafuji received the detection ability. At least he had a blessing. But considering how simple it seemed, it didn't look like anything impressive. After that, the kingdom's people began measuring their talents and physical and magical capabilities. Ryu had superhuman physical abilities. Isogai had a natural talent for creating blessings and a high magical power measurement. Meanwhile, Tamaki also had great magical aptitude but was focused on destructive magic. As for our boy, he had no talent for magic manipulation at all. He realized that he came to another world only to be weaker than all the girls, and he wasn't happy about that. Already exhausted on the floor, he muttered that it didn't matter since they were clearly the real heroes here. That night, they gathered in Ryu's room to discuss their future. A boy looked around, wondering why Ryu's room was so much bigger than his. Meanwhile, the two girls wanted to know why he was even there if he wasn't a real hero. That one stung, but our boy decided not to answer. Tamaki then said that she wasn't really worried about him. But the protagonist noticed that she clearly was concerned about him getting too involved in this. She was obviously not an honest girl. Ryu then said that the detection ability he had could actually be very important. Takafuji noticed that each of them had very different opinions about him. Ryu then said that even if the boy was weak, Ola could just put a magic barrier around him. She agreed, saying that if he wanted that, then fine. Our guy just thought that for someone so quiet, she was actually really cute. That's when he stopped to think that all three of them were really attractive. Three lucky people in life. Tamaki then wanted to know if it was really okay for them to stay in this country. Ryu was about to say something when someone else commented that the country wasn't bad and the treatment was nice. They all looked at our boy, who was signaling for them to stay quiet. In his notebook, he had written that there were people listening to their conversation, so it was best not to say anything suspicious. The three of them stood there looking dumbfounded while he realized that the so-called blessing of detection was already proving useful. Even though he had no physical or magical talent, it was truly a remarkable ability. He could sense the presence of people or creatures beyond walls. For example, at this moment he knew exactly who was spying outside. When he was in his own room, he tried to keep the maids away, but they always came back. He then wrote in his notebook and asked Aoi to cast a soundproof barrier. It wouldn't hurt to try, and she began her chant. The circle spread, but she warned that it wasn't very strong and wouldn't last long. Ryu praised her, calling her an amazing girl. She got a little flustered. Meanwhile, Takafuji just realized that these bastards were going to flirt right in front of him. Then Tamaki wanted to know why they were spying on their conversation in the first place. Ryu said it was obvious after all. They were heroes with enough power to destroy a nation, so it was too risky to leave them unchecked. But she angrily pointed out that it made no sense since they were forced to come to this place. That's when Takafuji mentioned that this country seemed desperate. He didn't understand this world's standards, but he suspected they were in a financial crisis. That was because the king was personally involved in numerous affairs, which was unusual. On top of that, he had very few vassals for a castle of this size. Tamaki said she noticed that too, but at least the food was good. It was simple but full of spices and delicious flavors. Takafuji, however, didn't seem to enjoy the food and wondered if there was something wrong with his taste. His friends commented that their rooms felt more like a soldier's quarters than a hero's. And our boy thought to himself that they hadn't even seen his tiny room yet. Since they had never been summoned elsewhere, they had nothing to compare it to. But he still remembered his arrival in Hyjin very clearly. Then he told the three of them that they needed to consider an escape plan from this country, since his detection ability let him avoid all surveillance. In the meantime, they also had to figure out how to return to their original world and get out of here. Since the three of them were considered this place's only hope, there was no way they were going to let their hope return to their world. Besides, even though the princess had said there was no way to go back, it seemed like a lie or something she was hiding. Ryu said he agreed with the boy. The problem was that they were still weak and didn't know enough. So for now, they needed to observe things for a while. Suddenly, Tamaki moved closer to our boy. She commented on his yellow eye and asked what that was. Our boy quickly covered his face, realizing he had forgotten about that detail. After all, it wasn't common for a Japanese person to have a yellow eye. But Ryu just said that everyone has secrets they don't want to share, so it was best not to bother the guy about it. Every teenager goes through a phase like this, but soon enough, you grow out of it. For now, they should just ignore it. Our boy noticed that Ryu thought he was wearing a contact lens to look stylish like a protagonist, but maybe that was actually a great excuse. So he told him to behold the power of the mystical eye. Sometime later, he was back in his room, wondering what was up with this eye. He checked his status, and man, there were a lot of attributes listed. The problem was that, just like us, he didn't know this world's average, so he couldn't say for sure how strong or weak he was. But judging by the physical tests, maybe they were bad or something was off. Then he decided to check his abilities. He had a different ability in each eye, the Demon King's Dark Magic, the ability to steal abilities, and finally detection. He then noticed that he had some strange attributes, probably received when he was summoned as a monster. He belonged to the demonic race and was classified as a vampire with the rank of Baron. He had a debuff called Hatred of the Sun God. During the day, his attributes were reduced to 1/10, and he couldn't use his abilities. Now it all made sense. He had struggled during the tests because he was exposed to sunlight, and the food tasted bad because it had garlic. Not to mention, when he looked at the girls, he found himself strangely interested in biting their necks and drinking some fresh blood. This whole time, he had been so focused on using detection that he had forgotten to check what was happening inside his body. Multiple strange eyes, vampire traits, and all sorts of mutations. He couldn't even understand what he was anymore. Little by little, he started to remember everything that had happened. After recalling everything and considering all the summonings, here's what he has. The detection ability allows him to sense any presence near him. He then grabs an old spoon and says that with another ability, he can consume the energy of a material and create a weapon. With that, the cast iron spoon transforms into a knife. The red eye man, motion detection, absolute measurement, long-range vision, microscopic vision, night vision, clairvoyance, illusions, X-ray vision, photographic memory, perception of external gazes. My God, what a list. He notices that at least everything was vision-related. It was some kind of eye 2.0. What he doesn't quite understand is the yellow eye. The description stated that magic circles seen by that eye could be transferred to his pupil and activated at will. He decides that later he'll have to take some time to study the magic of this world. The problem is that the list of abilities is long and there are several he doesn't understand. At least the vampirism part isn't too complicated. If he drinks enough of someone's blood to kill them, they turn into a ghoul. If it's a virgin, they become a subordinate vampire if he drinks their blood. If not, the person just turns into a ghoul. Additionally, he can simply kill someone, give them a bit of his blood, and they will become his servant too. Two interesting parts are that if he drains all the blood, he can steal the person's memories and also their abilities. As long as he can use his powers freely at night, he's sure it won't be hard to get stronger. But first, he needs to adapt to this body and this world. The next day, under the sunlight, someone introduces herself as the Knight Commander of the Kingdom of the Rising Sun. The peculiar blonde's name is Eiana Ishida. Our boy, who's just a little bit sexist, says it's amazing that there's a female knight and commander in this place. Maybe that's possible in fantasy worlds, or maybe it's related to their financial issues. Then the woman calls out to the two girls, saying that they seem to have talent for magic, but they need to learn the basics of martial arts. Normally, they would start with strength training, but she thinks that won't be necessary. Our boy, however, isn't excited about this. Apparently, his stats aren't as impressive, considering that Ryu has 1500 strength and everything above 1000. Tamaki has more HP than him and 3500 intuition, while Aoi has slightly less intuition, but a bit more in everything else. The stats of the three, from the moment they appeared, already surpassed the limits of a human in this world. Then Eiana tells them to choose what suits them best and later learn the basics of martial arts. However, the fool over there would be different. She warns that first they need to develop his physical strength. The problem is that the boy is doing push-ups under the sun, which is destroying his attributes. Not only is he weaker during the day, but he also gets severe headaches. Eiana says she will personally train him, so he better take it seriously. But the poor guy is already getting dizzy, and there's no way for him to escape this. Suddenly, the princess, who is annoying as hell, asks for permission to enter with her group. That's exactly what Takafuji is thinking too. However, she wasn't alone. There were other people beside her. Since the woman next to the princess stood close to her, she was probably someone of high status as well. She was a beautiful woman, but her expression was cold like a doll with a fake smile. Eiana greeted the princesses and asked what brought them there. Takafuji immediately stopped training and sat back, completely relaxed, curious to see what would happen. The other girl just greeted them politely, while the annoying princess dramatically stated that she had put aside her commitments to come say hello, so everyone should be grateful. Our boy just laughed at her until the other woman stepped forward. She introduced herself as the second princess and said it was a pleasure to meet him. That afternoon, she wanted to have a conversation with him. The scene then shifted to a chamber in the castle. In front of a board, she explained that they would have lessons there, but he found it highly suspicious that he was getting a separate lesson. The other heroes were also having lessons, but with the first princess in a different room. The truth was, all of this was because the first princess refused to teach someone who wasn't a hero. To her, that was an insult and an absurdity. He didn't care much, but he swore that one day he would get revenge for this. The second princess then said she would begin the lesson, but our boy wanted to ask some questions first. He asked if the first princess was older than her since she was called the second princess, but she explained that no, things were complicated. To sum it up, she said that the first princess was the true heir to the throne. Takafuji knew that royal succession was always a messy affair. Obviously, he didn't want to get involved in something like that. During the lesson, he learned that the kingdom of the rising sun was founded by the hero who defeated the previous demon king. That hero was a mage. In other words, the founder of this place was a witch, which was why witch worship was deeply rooted everywhere. The throne was always passed down through female heirs. They chose a king to marry, and only then did he become regent to govern the country. However, if the queen requested a divorce, he would stop being king. Thanks to the second princess, he learned about history and the fundamentals of magic, but he was already exhausted and went to sleep. Later that night, he started studying magic since the next day would be a practical test. At least he managed to borrow a book from the second princess. He knew she definitely didn't like that he had fallen asleep during class and didn't like that he asked for a book either. But just like a doll, she simply smiled and said it was fine. Looking at the pentagram, he said it was time to test what he couldn't manage the night before. He then activated the true mystic eye and observed the circle. In theory, he should be able to record it in his retina to use whenever he wanted. The problem was that nothing was happening. He wasn't even sure if it was activating at all. He also tried with other magic circles, but as he expected, nothing happened. So far, everything had been a complete failure. Then he remembered he had the 2.0 eye, saw some paper nearby, and started drawing the circles. The vision in that eye was so good that he could perfectly recall every circle he had seen before coming to this world. In theory, that should have been impossible due to the old man's hypnosis. But the eye was completely different, and he was able to draw the circles with ease. Staring at the paper, an energy radiated from his eye. It was something he had never felt before, so maybe he had finally activated this thing. Excited to test if it was working, he rang the little bell. A maid entered, asking if she had been summoned, and our boy explained that he needed a little favor. Before she could react, he activated his eye and successfully cast the old man's hypnosis spell. A second later, her eyes became unfocused. He ran his hand across her face and confirmed that the magic had worked. To test it further, he asked what color her underwear was, and she answered black. Not that he didn't already know, after all, he had X-ray vision, right? Considering everything that had happened, he wondered. Maybe the ability to steal magic could only store circles from the same world where he obtained it. If that was true, then the only magic he would really have was advanced hypnosis. That was one possibility, but he couldn't be sure. When he had been summoned to other worlds, he had also seen every circle. If he concentrated, maybe he could summon them too. With that, he recalled one of them and successfully created the magic in front of him. Instead of being sent to another world, he was teleported to a forest just ahead. Apparently, he could use this as a teleportation spell, and he could combine the red eye's long-range vision with the yellow eye's portal ability. With that, he could leave the castle anytime he wanted. Now that he was far away, there was no danger in testing other spells. He then touched a wall and created a dark magic circle. With this ability, he could control inanimate objects, move them freely, and store them in his shadow. Objects controlled by this magic couldn't interact with anything outside the spell's influence. However, he could release the control, allowing normal interaction. While it was a useful spell, it also had inconvenient limitations. With dark magic, he could also use Shadow Step. The ability allowed him to enter one surface and exit from another nearby. Inside a thin tree, he found it strange. He felt like he was in a spacious area. He then decided to test the creation ability again. A rock began to dissolve, and he transformed it into a sword. He focused and started recalling every movement his eye had captured from the commander. With just one look, he memorized them and effortlessly executed the same cuts. Now that it was nighttime, he planned to practice as much as possible since he'd be exhausted by morning. After some time, he was completely drained but had the feeling that something had improved. Then a window popped up, stating that he had obtained swordsmanship level 1. With that, he learned how to unlock abilities. Now it was time to figure out how to level up. Using his detection ability, he sensed something nearby. From the bushes, he saw some kind of monstrous rabbit carrying another creature in its mouth. It looked like a bird, but it had fur, which was strange. Using his identification skill, he found out it was a demon bird gecko. The problem was that, judging by its stats, the damn thing was actually quite strong. Then he remembered hearing some people in the castle talk about how this creature's feathers were used for various things, which made him wonder how such weak people were hunting these things. As he walked through the forest, he found other creatures that seemed weaker. However, the lowest attribute among them was 600, and some even surpassed his own. Clearly, this was a high-level monster forest, which was a problem. With his current stats, he could win in a one-on-one fight. The problem was that the chance of multiple enemies appearing was high. Meanwhile, back at the castle, the incredibly beautiful Eiana was walking through the halls and calling for Her Highness. She told the second princess that the area was secure, but even so, she shouldn't be wandering alone at night. However, the princess then said she wanted to have a conversation with her. She asked if it was true that artifacts weren't being used in Takafuji's training. The commander replied that none of the heroes were using artifacts yet. The girl pressed the issue, asking why and pointing out that sooner or later, they would have to use them. The woman glanced to the side and then said that artifacts increased strength, but these heroes were not ready yet. Without physical and mental strength, they could become too dependent on them. That's why, for now, the best approach was to monitor them and prepare them gradually. The girl lowered her gaze, then smiled, saying that she really should never have questioned the strongest human. The commander remained silent for a second before saying that her smile had lost its former shine. The second princess turned and said she hadn't even noticed that. Eiana then wanted to know her opinion on the first princess, to which she responded that she knew the girl was talented, dedicated, and an ambitious woman. However, the commander questioned whether she truly believed that. Then the second princess said that the place was safe from dangers, but not safe from people who listen in on conversations. She then wished her good night and left. The commander remained there thinking that Princess Aaliyah was being very cautious, but she shouldn't be afraid of her. A few days passed and our boy was getting used to this world. Obviously, the other heroes were making progress and he was the slowest when it came to physical evolution. On the first day, Ryu already looked comfortable wielding a sword, and now he was continuing down the path of a swordsman. Tamaki had started using a staff, but her magic had a peculiarity. She was slamming her spells into the ground as if wielding a giant hammer, and he couldn't understand the logic behind it. Meanwhile, Elway was training with a bow. Normally, archers needed protection, but since she had a barrier, that actually made sense. So now they had Ryu, who was extremely strong in close combat, Tamaki, who blew everything up both from a distance and up close, and Aoi, who was a self-sufficient archer while also defending others. Our boy, on the other hand, had only been able to train properly for the past 3 days. He had already noticed that they were only teaching him how to throw weapons from a distance. They were training him in stealth movement and how to disable traps. It was obvious they wanted to turn him into a scout to make full use of his detection ability. But when night fell, he would return to the forest to practice his abilities. At the moment, he was practicing controlling objects freely and remotely. He directed the dagger's trajectory and canceled control at the last second so it would stick into the tree. However, as he looked up at the moon, he was still furious about that damn sun curse. He wondered if it would disappear once he leveled up. For now, all he could do was keep improving his abilities. The demon bird Keko was there, drooling as it prepared to eat when something came rushing toward it. Man, it was Takafuji flying at full speed. The guy was practically off the ground. Now he was using his dark mana control combined with object control to restrain creatures. With that, he easily approached, locked eyes with the beast, and activated hypnosis. The monster froze, allowing him to get close without any risk. He finished it off, lifted it with dark magic, and stored it in the void. Man, he could enter his own void without a problem. And since he was a vampire, you already know what he was about to do. Taking advantage of the fact that no one was watching, he drank the monster's blood. Once he was done, he left the area. He quickly located his next target, but this one was ugly as hell, and he knew it wasn't going to taste good. Unfortunately, beggars can't be choosers, so he kept hunting until there was nothing left to do. As dawn broke, he teleported back to his room. So far, this had been his daily routine. Then Nala entered his room, greeted him, and told him to wake up. Our boy had been trying to use hypnosis on her as little as possible, but it was inevitable since he needed to gather information about this kingdom. Through this, he learned that the current queen had been unable to bear children for a long time. In a country ruled by women, that was a major problem, since the queen wouldn't have a daughter to inherit the throne. To make matters worse, young noble girls were mysteriously dying. To prevent their lineage from ending, they accepted a noblewoman as one of the king's concubines, and that woman gave birth to a child. That child was Aaliyah, the second princess. She was raised with love until she turned 7, but that's when the true queen finally gave birth to a daughter. Her name was Amanda, meaning the beloved girl. True to her name, the queen loved her far more than the other, especially since her daughter had inherited an incredible talent for magic. With that, Aaliyah was no longer considered a potential heir. The moment Amanda turned 7, she automatically assumed the position of the first princess. Everyone celebrated while Aaliyah stayed in the corner pretending not to care. But she realized that from that day forward, her existence no longer had any meaning in this world. She was forgotten by the people, abandoned by her own mother, and no one in the royal family wanted to interact with her. That was how Aaliyah was forced to live in solitude like a doll. Takafuji thought that she was just like him, since no one expected anything from either of them. She then smiled at him and gently asked him to wake up, telling him that even though the lessons were boring, they were essential for his survival. Our boy was exhausted, yawning, wondering why she was nagging him today, considering that she normally didn't bother him. She then commented that she had heard he was learning espionage techniques during training. Even though he wasn't talented in magic, it seemed like he had a good chance of making use of what he was learning here. One thing our protagonist didn't understand was why he couldn't properly use the magic taught in this world. He knew it was probably a rare case, since even Nala, a simple maid, could easily manipulate multiple objects. However, Aaliyah said that Commander Eiana Ishida was a busy woman and wouldn't have taken time to train him if she didn't see potential in him. But the boy replied that maybe she just saw the advantage of being known as the person who trained one of the heroes. That's when Aaliyah slammed the table and said no. She was certain that he could become strong, and that was why she wanted to see him put in effort. He was a bit confused by how close she was, but she turned away and told him to follow. In the next scene, they were descending a long staircase. After what felt like an endless path, the two of them stood before a massive door. She cast a spell and said that they would continue his training in this room. Then she added that even though he was a hero, people called him a failure. She turned to him and asked if he didn't find that shameful. Takafuji once again wondered what was going on with this girl today to make her so fired up. He knew that ever since her misfortune, she had been suppressing her emotions. She had been faking it so well that people started calling her the doll princess. But at that moment, she was different. She was no longer the quiet and reserved girl he had met. She then entered the room, and on the ceiling was a massive magic circle. This would serve its purpose, she said, before warning him that at this rate, he would be exiled from the castle. Before he could explain himself, she recited a quote from the former queen. "They have no obligation to nurture incompetent people who come to this kingdom." Our boy still didn't care much and simply said that he wasn't incompetent. He had the detection ability, which was quite useful. She agreed, but at the same time, he wasn't putting in as much effort as the others. As someone carrying a blessing, he should take fate into his own hands and do his best. Takafuji, poor guy, was always falling asleep in class because he stayed up all night. But even though she didn't know it, he had been putting in effort, hunting in the dead of night. So he told her that he was trying. He was doing his best within his limits. It just didn't seem as powerful as those three. Nor was he as academically skilled as she was. But then Aaliyah revealed that this magic room had a barrier. He placed his hand on the door, and she told him that no one would hear his screams. The boy, however, just wanted to know how to open the damn thing. And that's when she suddenly stared at him, raised her foot, and kicked him in the back. What the hell? He slammed face first into the wall. He turned around completely baffled, and she told him that he was in a much better position than she was, and he refused to give his best. He needed to understand that if he were expelled from this castle, the creatures outside would kill him instantly. That's why he had to work hard to survive, even if it meant embarrassing himself. Our boy didn't care much about the kick. He seemed to enjoy getting beaten by women. That much was clear. In fact, he was impressed by her, realizing that the doll princess was no longer in that room. Then she shouted at him to take control of his own life. Suddenly, the guy started laughing, bursting into a full-blown fit. He even said that she really was a beautiful girl. He had truly underestimated her and never expected her to be such a strong person. That's when she asked if he was mocking her. But he answered that he wasn't, since he was actually one of the 4 people most concerned about his own safety among the heroes. She realized he wasn't joking and admitted that maybe she had been underestimating him instead. As soon as he activated his aura, she noted that strangely he seemed much stronger than just a moment ago. He simply thanked her for telling him the truth and said that since he was close to being exposed, he needed to come up with a plan. The truth was that for now, he still wanted to stay there and gather as much information as possible. The next day on the training grounds, he thought about showing the true strength of his blessing just to avoid being expelled. The problem was that they still wouldn't be entering any dungeons, and in the sunlight, he was completely weak. Once training wrapped up, our boy decided the best course of action was to talk to the commander. He called her over for a chat, hoping to convince the queen not to expel him. But the scene immediately cut to her saying that it would be quite difficult. He asked if she truly believed his ability was useless. It might seem like he wasn't putting in effort during training, but he was. But before he could continue, the commander interrupted him and said that actually she didn't think his ability was useless at all. In fact, she even wanted him to join her night brigade. That surprised him, and she explained that his ability was extremely valuable in the dungeons they raided. He could become an essential tool in any kind of adventure. However, he needed to understand that his words carried no weight and would never be enough to convince the queen. But if he chose to serve the kingdom as a soldier instead of as one of its weakest heroes, that would be reason enough for them not to exile him. Our protagonist paused to think. He knew that if he joined this country's knights, he would be trapped in this nation. It wasn't something he could decide so easily. So he told her that he appreciated the offer but needed some time to think about it. She responded that it was fine and told him that if he ever needed someone, he could talk to her. Our boy was direct and asked if she meant that he should go to her once he got exiled. She just looked out the window and said, maybe. A few days passed. Our boy was sleeping on his desk, wondering if it was true that the neighboring nation's people were coming for a visit. She explained that yes, they were, because it was a celebration party. Since numerous guests had been invited, there would be no classes or training that day. Our boy was exhausted, wondering why no one had warned him about this disaster. But she just said that students who sleep in class don't deserve to know things. He realized that even this damn woman didn't like him much. Sometime later, the Lemon Cavalry entered the city. Everyone was celebrating and setting off fireworks, while our boy thought that for a financially ruined country, they sure were spending a lot on this party. Maybe he should show up at the celebration since no one would notice. Or maybe it would be terrible to appear there and have to explain his existence to those people. They might even want to investigate him and find out why 4 heroes had been summoned. That would be a pain, so he dismissed the idea. But it wasn't like he couldn't find out what was happening there. So he activated his 2.0 eye and his awareness began navigating through the hallways. He saw the two princesses and thought that his teacher looked stunning in her new dress. But as always, her smile still seemed a little fake. He saw all the fancy food on the tables and immediately realized that Nala had been lying. Earlier, while talking to her, he had discovered that one of the reasons this kingdom was going bankrupt was these ridiculously extravagant parties. It seemed the queen was obsessed with maintaining an image of splendor and luxury, completely draining the treasury. Then something surprising happened. He saw a group standing in front of Ryu and immediately knew. These were the heroes from another country who had also been summoned here. One of them had a particularly unique appearance. With blonde hair, it was hard to believe he was Japanese. He decided to use his identification skill and found out that the guy's name was Masayoshi Date. He thought that was a pretty classic name for a hero. But what he really wanted to know was why this guy was shouting at Ryu. He read his lips to find out what he was saying. And the blonde guy was shouting Takafuji's name, demanding that they bring him immediately because he was challenging him to a duel. Damn, this story was moving fast. The party was over in no time, and now Aaliyah was announcing that Takafuji was coming. All the heroes in the room turned to look, and our boy realized that there was no escaping this. Masayoshi then stepped forward and formally challenged him to a duel. The room went silent, everyone curious to hear his response. Lazy as ever, our boy just asked why it had to be a duel of all things. Masayoshi yelled that it was to prove to the goddess that he was not worthy of her love. Takafuji was a bit confused, but the blonde told him to stop playing dumb. Masayoshi then declared that he knew very well that Takafuji had ended up in the white space where he met the goddess who brought them to this world. The protagonist just said, "So what?" since everyone had gone through that. But then Masayoshi revealed that he had proposed marriage to the goddess, to which she replied that if he could defeat Takafuji Nori, she would consider it. Our boy instantly realized that damn woman wasn't just trying to dump her problems onto him, she was also trying to get rid of him. He was definitely going to make her pay for this the next time he saw her. Strangely, the other heroes were looking at each other, confused about this white space and goddess talk. At that moment, Takafuji realized that they had been summoned differently since they had no idea what he was talking about. It would be too much trouble to explain everything, so for now, he decided to just play dumb. So he told the guy that he had no idea what he was talking about, but he accepted the duel. The blonde smirked, and our boy said that now they just needed to decide on the format. If it was a one-on-one combat duel, that would be way too easy. After all, unlike the other heroes, he didn't have a superhuman body or a combat specialized class. Surely this guy hadn't gone through all this trouble just to bully someone who had all the disadvantages in the world. If that was the case, it would be downright pathetic. Masayoshi shouted that of course not, and he would accept any duel Takafuji proposed. The crowd was shocked that he had agreed to such stupidity. Then our boy mentioned a dungeon where he was supposed to train with the knights. They could compete to see who would be the first to kill the first floor's boss. Masayoshi agreed, saying it was a great idea and accepting the challenge. But Ryu warned our boy that while he might be able to navigate the dungeon with ease, he wouldn't be able to kill the boss. However, our boy just smiled and said he had a little plan. The duel was scheduled for the next day, and shortly after the duel, the queen asked if he was Takafuji Nori. She demanded he explain why he had accepted a duel and been completely pulverized. Our boy thought pulverized was the perfect word. Masayoshi was a force of nature. No creature in that place stood a chance, and even the boss fell in seconds. On the other hand, our boy had used detection to sneak past everything. The objective conclusion was that he had been utterly crushed in this duel. The queen then said she had been ignoring just how lazy and weak he was. She had believed in him because the knight commander saw potential in him. But with this act, he had brought weakness to the kingdom. And that was something she could not forgive. Aaliyah already knew what was coming, and sure enough, the queen declared that Takafuji Nori was banished from the kingdom. The first princess seemed pleased, while the other two girls looked a bit sad. But the one smiling the most completely happy was our boy. That bastard definitely wanted this to happen. The queen asked if he had any objections, and he said yes. He wanted to know exactly how he had harmed the kingdom. She said it was obvious. By losing the duel, he had stained the kingdom's reputation. He then explained that if it was just a race, then yes, he had lost. But the duel's actual wager was about worthiness. It was just a battle to determine who deserved to be loved by a certain girl. Additionally, they had promised not to let anyone outside the duel know the results. Not to mention, he wasn't even considered a hero in this kingdom, and his presence wasn't revealed to other nations. With no power, no influence, and no one knowing who he was, there was no way he had brought dishonor to this place. After all, the duel was nothing more than a silly game. However, he had taken advantage of entering that dungeon to use his detection ability. A few guys tossed a bag of money, and he said he had gotten this small reward. The queen and princess were impressed, and he said he was offering this little treasure to her majesty. She seemed pleased, while our boy simply stated that it had been easy to find with his ability. The truth was that Takafuji just didn't want to leave the castle yet, so he used these coins to buy himself more time there. That way, he got rid of the queen's and Masayoshi's nonsense for a while. And now, he was back to his usual nights of hunting, leveling up peacefully. As long as no one knew he was still getting stronger, he was fine. The only annoying part was that he was starting to get sick of drinking that bird's blood. He glanced to the side and realized he was in the same spot where he had started hunting that night. The forest was really messing with his sense of direction, and he wondered if there was another way to use detection. He activated his demon vision along with detection and noticed a barrier leading to another area. It was some kind of illusion that made people unknowingly change direction. But with his eye, he could see through it and wondered if there were stronger creatures hidden inside. He'd always teleport back if anything dangerous appeared, so he stepped in. And hiding inside was a giant wolf with its pack. As soon as he took his first steps, he noticed movement nearby. It was a few wolves approaching. It was the first time he had dealt with creatures larger than his camera view, so he activated his trap web immediately. A bunch of traps formed around him, and within seconds, the wolves were all dead on the ground. If he had to face more than 3 of them at once, it would have been really difficult. Luckily, traps were simple to set up, and the beasts ended up getting caught in them. He started sending the bodies into the void, muttering that at least they seemed to give more experience than the birds. A while later, he was back in the forest. In the middle of a lake, there was a tree under the moonlight, and our boy thought it looked like the perfect setting for a boss fight. The moment he turned around and said, "But this isn't a video game," the boss was already behind him. Man, before he could even react, his arm was gone. What the hell? He was still looking to the side when the beast swiped at him, sending him rolling back first into a tree. He didn't even understand what had happened, and the creature was already face to face with him. It was a mystical beast called Fenrir. He quickly realized that this thing wasn't a demon, but something entirely different. Maybe it was some kind of mini-boss, or something, since he didn't die instantly. He could still escape through the shadows, but that would be a problem given how fast the creature was. But he didn't have much time. Fenrir was already lunging at him with a bite to finish him off. The monster destroyed the tree, but our boy was no longer there. He had already teleported to the top of another tree and flew away with a wing. Remembering the world where he had gained his vampire powers, he thought, "I never expected I'd need to use this so soon." Fenrir looked up and questioned why he had come there. The fact that it could speak meant it was definitely a special kind of beast. Our boy replied that he had just gotten lost in the forest, but the wolf called him a liar, saying that he had clearly crossed the illusion portal and entered this place intentionally. Takafuji admitted that he was curious. Normally, an illusion was used to protect something important, and he wanted to know what it was. Fenrir, however, said that enough talk. He had trespassed and killed some of his kind, so he wouldn't be leaving alive. But Takafuji just smirked and said that the more the wolf talked, the more convinced he was that something valuable was hidden here. Now he really wanted to know what was so important. The wolf declared that as a final gift before his next life, he would let him know. This land was where they had made a pact with a witch. He didn't know why, but ever since that pact, they had been protecting this place. His only duty was to eliminate any threats or monsters that invaded. And naturally, an intruder like Takafuji was also a target. With that said, he warned that if the boy stayed still, he would at least die painlessly. But Takafuji was more focused on the fact that his arm was back. Apparently, his vampire regeneration was even more impressive than he had imagined. Fenrir prepared to attack, saying that it was clear Takafuji was no ordinary human. He lunged forward, stating that there was no way he could let him leave alive. Takafuji tried to dodge, and the area around them exploded. Thanks to his demon eye, he barely managed to read the wolf's movements in time. He tried to fly away, realizing that there was no way he could win this fight right now. His plan was to gain some distance by flying, then drop to the ground and teleport out. But mid-fall, the creature launched a barrage of ice attacks. Takafuji raised his arms to protect himself, but the attack struck a tree instead, slicing it clean in half. The wolf turned its head toward him for just a second, then in an instant was already lunging for another bite. Another explosion of force, and he barely escaped to the side. The monster was so fast that he had zero chance of using hypnosis, and it was becoming impossible to find an escape route. He saw a waterfall ahead and wondered how the hell he was going to get out of this. The wolf was coming from above, sending another ice attack while preparing to bite. Our boy braced himself, but this time his wings were completely shredded. Fenrir grinned, then came in for the final attack. But Takafuji grinned back, activated his ability on the ground, and sent up a barrage of spikes. Fenrir barely managed to dodge to the side, avoiding being impaled. Takafuji had been storing leftover tree trunks in the other dimension in case something like this happened. The problem was that the situation hadn't exactly gotten easier because of it. As Fenrir locked eyes with him, Takafuji tried to find an opening to use teleportation. He wanted to use hypnosis to distract the beast for just a second. So he began casting dark magic again, muttering that he'd have to buy some time. He pulled out a few daggers, and the wolf prepared to counter. Takafuji knew he had to create at least one opening. He expanded his aura while the wolf wondered what the boy was up to. The protagonist knew that the creature was overwhelmingly strong. He had nearly gotten his back torn apart by a bite. At the last second, he pulled out more knives and hurled them toward Fenrir's head. The wolf thought it was a pointless move. Such a poorly planned attack wouldn't work on him. He swung his tail, sending out another ice barrage, but our boy blocked with his knives. At least thanks to his regeneration, as long as he protected his head and legs, he could keep moving and stay alive. Meanwhile, Fenrir was starting to be impressed by how persistent this kid was. Our boy then activated a black thread trap. The surrounding trees had already been marked, and the wolf was caught in the bindings. For the first time, Fenrir seemed to be immobilized. Takafuji smirked for a second, but within moments, all the trees shattered. The wolf simply stated that something like that wouldn't even leave a scratch. Stunned and terrified, Takafuji went back to trying to escape, realizing that he had only one option left. As he dodged more ice attacks and the wolf lunged in for another bite, he prayed that this would work. He kicked off a tree, launching himself skyward with the Parker move. The wolf assumed he was trying to flee by flying. What an idiot. He sent out another tail attack, declaring that the boy had just made himself an easy target. But as he had been moving, Takafuji had been laying out threads using his other eye. And now the entire area he had traveled through had turned into a teleportation circle. He activated it, saying, "Now there's no way you can escape." The wolf realized the boy had vanished from above and wondered where he had gone. But Takafuji was already on Fenrir's back, whispering, "The plan worked. Time to say goodbye, buddy." With that, he stabbed the wolf straight in the eye. The beast howled in agony as Takafuji casually remarked that getting beaten up was kind of his style. But the mystical creature started thrashing its tail, obliterating everything around it. One of the attacks nearly hit our boy, but now that the beast was blind, dodging was much easier. At first, he thought he had only taken out one eye, but no, the kid had been quick. He had slashed both. The monster was completely blind. But the way it had stopped moving made Takafuji realize something. It was trying to locate him by scent, and the bloodthirsty aura radiating from the creature was terrifying. Once again, it lunged for a bite, but our boy simply said, "Yeah, I think it's time to go." Its attacks had slowed and teleporting away was now easy. The wolf was left behind, wondering where the hell that bastard had gone. After a few teleport jumps, Takafuji collapsed into his bed, completely exhausted. After all that suffering, all he had managed to do was slightly injure the creature. But next time he would win. From that day forward, he began infiltrating the castle's equipment storage, gathering high-quality materials and metals, just in case another emergency like that ever happened again. During the fight, Takafuji had managed to steal some of Fenrir's fur. The material had crystallization and hardening properties. As soon as he applied a bit of dark magic, it immediately solidified. That explained why every time the monster attacked, there was an energy surge in its strikes. If this was a material that reacted to being touched by humans, he wondered what would happen if he crafted a weapon with it. He ended up creating a type of thread called Gleikner. These were indestructible strands no matter how much force was applied to them, and when infused with magic, they hardened and crystallized. For him, this was perfect. Not even Fenrir himself would be able to break it. He then had an idea and modified the thread to form a glove. A black glove that had the same dark hardening and crystallization as the threads. Since Fenrir had attacked him so many times, he had gathered a good amount of material, giving him another interesting idea. The next day, our boy was suited up in a full custom outfit, complete with boots and a suit. Now, it was revenge time. A yellow explosion lit up the forest, startling Fenrir. Takafuji appeared with a casual, "Hey, it's been a day since we last saw each other." Fenrir was furious. This damn bastard had actually dared to set foot in his land again. The monster was still blind, and Takafuji commented on how beautiful his eyes were. The creature immediately lashed out, telling him to shut up. Our boy was impressed. Even blind, Fenrir was still that accurate. The wolf then warned that no one had ever stepped into this land twice and left alive. Takafuji noted that between its rage and the pain of losing its eyes, the creature was a real stubborn bastard. Its fur was incredible, so obviously he needed to kill it and take more. Fenrir kept attacking until Takafuji touched a tree. From inside it, several black wolves emerged. The beast had no idea what was happening as it was bitten from all sides. Takafuji casually remarked that by scent alone, Fenrir should already know what they were. He was being bitten by the corpses of his own kind. The monster roared in fury, demanding to know how Takafuji dared to do something like this. But our boy simply replied that they seemed useful, so he made them his subordinates. Fenrir thrashed, shaking everything off, sending a few wolves flying, and one of the attacks almost hit Takafuji. The protagonist's attack hadn't been effective, but it had bought him some time. Even so, the wolf managed to swipe at him with a powerful paw strike. He barely teleported away mid-attack as the wolves surrounded the trees. As soon as he stopped behind a tree to catch his breath, Fenrir was already lunging for another strike. But another teleport saved him. The monster was getting pissed at this constant evasion while Takafuji was now appearing above him. The boss prepared to pounce, ready for the kill. And that's when Takafuji grinned and said, "At no point was I ever trying to escape." The creature leaped forward, only to slam into invisible threads, instantly getting caught. Fenrir couldn't believe it, even with his sense of smell. He hadn't detected anything. As Takafuji hovered above, the wolf demanded to know what the hell that bastard had done. And our boy explained, "These threads were made from your own fur. That's why you couldn't detect them. It smelled the same as you." Since the moment he had arrived, every attack he had received, every wolf he had sent out, it had all been a distraction. While the monster was busy, he had been weaving the trap the entire time. Now that Fenrir was immobilized, there was nothing he could do. Takafuji bid him farewell and activated the thread's compression. The lines tightened, pulling the beast to the ground. The watching wolves stared in silence. Fenrir, in disbelief, wondered if this was really the end. If he died, the pact would also be broken. But my guy, too late for that. Takafuji didn't just kill him, he had already drunk his blood. That single death alone earned him 5 levels and some extra abilities. That's when he noticed something interesting in the system, a unique skill, Bastard King. Then someone called him Master. When he turned, it was the wolves he had killed. They were now standing before him, apparently able to communicate, most likely due to his new ability. He wondered if this skill applied to any subordinates. One of the wolves then asked him, "Why don't you make Fenrir a subordinate too?" Their former master had been a creature that had fought desperately to protect this land and had always shielded them. That's why those who once served Fenrir now wanted to follow him as an ally. Takafuji took a deep breath. It wasn't like there was any downside for him in doing that. The problem was, he was already exhausted and running out of energy. Meanwhile, back at the castle dinner, Ryu was pointing out that the first and second princesses didn't seem to get along very well. Tamaki disagrees, saying it wasn't that, it just had different personalities. Aoi wasn't sure and started discussing the topic further. Takafuji, however, didn't give a damn. He was too pissed off that his food always had garlic in it. That's when Ryu suddenly suggested that he should help with the situation. Our boy immediately asked why they were talking about him. Aoi or Tamaki could handle it. They were women, so they could just talk to the princesses. But Ryu insisted. Takafuji had classes with the second princess and was closer to her, so maybe it would be easier to find a way to bring the two sisters closer. Takafuji simply replied that the first princess was stubborn as hell, and trying to make peace between them would never work. But then Ryu told him not to worry, just ask, and she would listen. Our boy had no idea why, and Ryu explained that it was because she was completely in love with him. Judging by the girl's reactions, our boy realized that Ryu's reputation was going straight down the drain. Ryu then added that if he accepted, he could ask for a free day once a week. And since our boy hated daytime training, he agreed instantly. The problem was that first, he had to talk to the first princess. So he knocked on her door. She was already standing there with her arms crossed, saying that she was only talking to him because Ryu had asked her to, so he better speak quickly. The moment he stepped inside, he already wanted to go back to his room. Before he could even open his mouth, she declared that for today only, she would allow him to address her directly. He should feel very grateful for such a rare opportunity. He ignored everything she was saying and instead noticed how luxurious her room was. Seeing his reaction, she smugly assumed he was fascinated by the wealth she possessed, riches he would never obtain in his lifetime. He then pointed at a duck figurine and asked if she really liked that. Amanda scoffed, calling him an idiot. She was royalty. Everything she owned was either a gift from her mother or from noble families. Our boy just wanted to disappear from there and decided to get this over with as quickly as possible. So he finally brought up the subject of her relationship with the second princess. Amanda immediately cut him off, saying that she had never cared about her. Takafuji realized he shouldn't have accepted this stupid deal. Tired of the theatrics, he flatly stated that Ryu had asked him to help the two princesses talk more. But Amanda replied that she personally had no interest in that. He didn't quite understand why, and she said that as a commoner, he shouldn't even be getting involved. He rubbed his face in frustration. He was going to have to take the easy route. He again mentioned that this was a request from Ryu, and that he would be very sad if this opportunity didn't work out. Suddenly, she was enthusiastic, asking him to explain the details of the plan. At the very least, she was childish enough for that tactic to work. Some time later, Amanda explained that their relationship hadn't always been this way. When they were younger, they got along very well. They talked and spent all their time together. Aaliyah was always intelligent and loved playing with her and having fun. That's why Amanda had always liked following her around. But one day, out of nowhere, Aaliyah started distancing herself. Shortly after that, Amanda turned 7 and received the title of First Princess, inheriting the right to the throne. That was when she discovered that Aaliyah wasn't really her sister, nor was she the daughter of the same mother. From that day forward, everything changed, leading to the strained relationship they had now. The truth was that to become queen, she had undergo extremely strict training. It was only through that experience that she realized just how exceptional and kind Aaliyah was. She found herself wishing that Aaliyah was still by her side. But the adults never allowed that to happen, and the distance between them only grew. She turned away and said that was all she had to say. Takafuji at least understood now. All of her arrogance came from how the adults had raised her. Just like her room, it had nothing that truly reflected her. Everything she owned and even her personality to some extent had been shaped by others. Acting superior was just the only way she could express even a little individuality. Amanda then lay down on her desk and said that now that she had shared everything, he should give her some advice. Takafuji told her that she should go to Aaliyah and say, "From now on, I'm calling you my sister." But Amanda replied that if she said something like that, all the maids would start gossiping. He laughed and asked if the maids were somehow above the princess. It was strange that the future queen wasn't even allowed to decide how to act. She tried to explain that it would only cause problems for Aaliyah, but he told her that Aaliyah wasn't as weak as she thought. She hesitated for a moment, then finally said that she would consider what he had said and thanked him. Without saying anything, he just left the room. Sometime later, he told everything to Nala. The maid listened but didn't seem too excited about it. Still, she said she would deliver the message. Our boy knew that this was the best way to get the message across since Nala was also close to the second princess. The next morning, Nala came to him saying she had something to tell him about the second princess. He asked what it was, and she said that Aaliyah had sent word that today they would have a special training session. Poor Takafuji already knew that meant trouble was coming. In the middle of a busy street, there he was, following the two princesses around. He wondered why they had to come all the way here just for a lesson. Aaliyah explained that getting accustomed to the streets and atmosphere of the city was an important part of social studies. That was why he would be accompanying her to his shop. He asked what they were going to buy, and she suggested that they should take a look at some accessories. Already inside the store, he wondered why a princess was personally shopping for something like this. She was completely engrossed and then asked him which one he thought looked better. Not caring much, he just said both looked nice. That's when Aaliyah told him to focus, the gift wasn't even for her. He was confused, so Nala explained that it was a present for the first princess's birthday. After delivering his message, Aaliyah had replied that tomorrow they would go out together to buy a present for her newfound sister. He said he understood, but wanted to know why they cared about his opinion. Aaliyah said that since he had entered her room and talked for a long time, maybe he knew more about Amanda's taste than she did. However, she explained that her room only had gifts and nothing she had chosen herself, so anything would do. The second princess asked if that meant gifts were useless, but he explained that a gift's value came from who gave it. That was why he believed that whatever she chose would already be enough. Nala thought the boy was being kind, but he was just giving the fastest answers to get home and sleep as soon as possible. Still, the second princess was happy and immediately went to buy the gift. The maid praised our boy, saying that thanks to him, they had this idea. And seeing Aaliyah smile, she added that it was really nice to see her happy again. Aaliyah turned around, asking what they were talking about, and Nala quickly covered it up. 5 days passed. At the very least, he had been invited to the first princess's birthday party. The place was filled with ridiculously expensive food and high-status guests. Everyone stood around looking like fools, badly drawn as he put it, while our boy observed everything with his demon eye. As usual, he was listening in on conversations with Aaliyah and wondering where the second princess was. Then he spotted her, hiding behind a pillar. She seemed nervous about approaching her younger sister. Considering Amanda was talking with Ryu, it was understandable that getting involved in that conversation would be difficult. He decided to play dumb and give her a hand. So he suddenly appeared beside Aaliyah, making her jump and ask what he was doing there. Takafuji replied that last time she had kicked him, so she shouldn't feel bad about it. He asked where all that courage from before had gone, then shoved her forward. She stumbled straight into Amanda. The nobles all looked on in confusion while our boy just hoped this wouldn't turn into a disaster. She had already gone this far, now she just had the hand over the gift. Aaliyah took a deep breath and presented the present to Amanda. Amanda hesitated for a second, then opened the box and took a look inside. She then said she wanted to wear it immediately, and Aaliyah helped her put it in her hair. She turned to ask how she looked, and Aaliyah said it suited her very well. Amanda smiled, and the party continued as usual. Then Amanda said she wanted another present. She wanted Aaliyah to start calling her big sister. Aaliyah was caught off guard and suddenly found herself remembering their time together as children. She then said that she would be happy to. Amanda was surprised, and they hugged in an emotional moment. Meanwhile, Takafuji just stood there, thinking that at least this problem had been solved. Strangely, the king and queen also seemed happy about it, which made him think these girls had been dragging this out for no reason. Ryu told our boy that it had really been a great idea to have him handle this, to which our boy replied that he had worked hard to make it happen, so he better get a good reward. Ryu said okay, he would try to find something worthwhile. But looking at the two princesses, he was genuinely happy that it had worked out. Takafuji, on the other hand, just thought that this guy really always acted like a perfect hero. He then said goodbye, stating that he was going to get some fresh air. When he stepped outside, Aaliyah approached him and thanked him. Our boy just told her not to worry, there was no one around to listen to the conversation. Aaliyah smiled, saying that his detection ability really made things easier. Takafuji then asked if she felt better now that she had started expressing her emotions. She got angry, saying that if anyone never showed emotions, it was him. But suddenly, there was a bloodbath on the ballroom floor. Everyone was in shock, and our boy realized that after this, Aaliyah would never be called the doll princess again. A scream echoed through the hall, and both of them turned toward it. Aaliyah was about to run, but he blocked her path and told her to stay put. There was a head flying through the air, and the king and queen were dead. What the hell happened here? A man shouted, ordering the corrupt to stay silent. He declared that the former rulers had been recklessly spending the kingdom's finances without concern for the people. The king, who had done nothing to stop the queen, also deserved to die. That was why he, a man named Vampiric, who possessed royal blood, would now assume the throne. And the person called Eiana would be the new queen. Man, it was the commander who had been training our boy this whole time. Now things were getting complicated. The two of them stood there, shocked, while poor Amanda approached her mother's severed head. She started activating her power, calling them insane. She was already preparing a sphere of light, but girl, this is not a good idea. Obviously, Eiana moved in an instant and sliced her up. She didn't kill her, but damn. I actually felt bad for the girl, but at least she looked cool as soon as that useless piece of trash hit the floor. She writhed in pain, and the brute she had just received rolled across the ground. The heroes were in shock, and Eiana told Ryu not to move. If he attacked in any way, his death wouldn't be peaceful. That's when Vampiric shouted, saying that they were merely children and pawns of the witches. They had betrayed the witches' will by making the foolish decision to summon heroes. That was a grave sin, one that could only be forgiven through death. Man, while poor Amanda was crying out for her sister, Eiana slashed her down. What the hell, girl? This commander was a real plot twist. Everything flipped. The one I hated, I now liked. The one I liked, I now hated. Aaliyah was about to do something, but the protagonist knew it was stupid. She was about to scream for her sister, but he immediately covered her mouth, telling her that getting caught would be the dumbest move possible. A rebellion was the last thing he had expected. Then Vampiric ordered the citizens and soldiers to send these fools who stood against the witches to meet them. A noble tried to say something, but man got slashed in the back before he could finish. The bastard even smiled at the sky, declaring that now he had finally purified the entire royal family. Anyone who opposed the witches will deserve death. Takafuji kept whispering for Aaliyah to calm down, otherwise, she was going to die too. Either she did something reckless and died stupidly right there, or the two of them escaped now. The moment Amanda died, Ryu ran to her body. He shouted that this was insane. No one deserved to die for something so meaningless. But Vampiric simply said that the heroes were still too young. Every noble who had been there did not deserve the life they had. They didn't understand the true state of their country. Ryu screamed that even so, they didn't have to kill them. But Vampiric only said that if he had seen the horrors of the city, he would understand. Then he ordered Eiana to capture the heroes. She activated her aura, still beautiful as ever, but more dangerous than ever, and told Ryu that it would be better if he didn't resist. But man, Ryu's not right in the head. He activated his limit break blessing and sent a light slash toward her. But Eiana barely moved. She casually extended her sword and blocked it with ease. She even complimented him, saying that both his power and judgment weren't bad. Once again, Ryu lunged forward, unleashing a storm of slashes. But the way Eiana calmly handled everything, it was clear the boy had zero chance. His attacks were ripping apart the hall while Aoi held up a barrier, locking an onslaught of swords. Tamaki said that they needed to get Ryu out of there and escape immediately. The problem was that they were completely surrounded by soldiers. This wouldn't be easy to resolve. Eiana remained calm while Ryu was already exhausted. She commented that since even Tamaki wasn't making a move, this victory would be easy. Ryu barely blocked another strike before she leaned in close and asked, "What are you going to do?" Even if he kept fighting, he couldn't win. It would be better if he surrendered so they could be captured. Then she would end the second princess right now. Aaliyah lay there, collapsed while our boy warned her straight up. "You need to go now. If you stay here, you're going to die. You heard that, right?" She hesitated, but he pushed further, asking if she was really going to give up again after all this. Aaliyah realized what he meant. He was talking about her sister, about how she'd abandoned her that time. And that was when she decided she wasn't going to give up. She would survive, so that one day she could get revenge. She wasn't going to let Eiana decide how she would die. He smiled and said that if that was the case, he would help her escape. But from now on, he wasn't going to call her the second princess. He would just call her Aaliyah. At that exact moment, Ryu's sword was shattered. He realized he didn't stand a chance, and Eiana said, "This is the end." Man, she kicked him right in the gut with the sharp edge of her heel. That one hurt. The poor guy spat out his lunch from 3 days ago, and Tamaki immediately saw that this wasn't going to work. He was completely down on the ground, and she realized that the longer they stayed there, the more dangerous things got. She decided she had to save Ryu immediately, but in just 1 second, Eiana obliterated Aoi's barrier with a single strike. Both girls were stunned, but the commander just gave the order to capture everyone. Man, the soldiers came in and slammed the two of them onto the ground. They should at least be thankful they didn't get their heads cut off. Then she ordered them all to be taken to prison. And just to rub salt in the wound, Eiana gave Ryu one last look and questioned whether she had wasted too much time trying to train him. As Aaliyah watched the scene unfold, she thought that at the very least, the girl wouldn't be able to escape alone. But girl, she wasn't alone. She had our protagonist. Using his detection ability, he pinpointed the best corridor for them to take, allowing them to slip past without the guards noticing. As they ran, Aaliyah was amazed at how far he could detect people's presence. He then asked if she knew how to use magic. She answered that she only knew the basics. So he pointed to the end of the hallway and said that in 10 seconds, 3 soldiers would appear. She had to take care of them. She hesitated, asking if they couldn't just avoid them. But he explained that wasn't an option. She took a deep breath, nodded at him, and he continued counting down. 2 seconds. A sword appeared. 1 second. And she fired a burst of air. 3 spheres formed around the soldiers' heads, cutting off their oxygen, and they collapsed unconscious. Takafuji was impressed. No wonder she was his teacher. Aaliyah explained that it was much easier to use magic when you had time to prepare like that. But then she noticed that he looked tired and asked if he was okay. Our boy simply replied that unfortunately, their enemies didn't care whether he was okay or not. Then he kept running, saying they had to take advantage of the weakened security. He managed to take out the soldiers, but he was sure he had zero chance against Eiana. The main goal of this escape was not to be seen by her. That woman was on a completely different level. They found an empty room, and he confirmed that at least no one was there. He searched for an escape route and then asked if she was okay with all this. He asked because, man, there had been a massacre of all the maids in the palace. He was horrified that they had gone as far as to kill every single servant. Aaliyah walked to the corner and called out for Nala. Man, poor girl, she didn't deserve to die. She hugged her tightly, and our boy immediately remembered what she had said before, that just seeing the princess smile was enough to make her happy. He fell silent for a second. Then after a moment, Aaliyah gently laid Nala to rest and thanked him for waiting. He said it was perfect because he needed time to recover, but the real question now was, how are they going to escape? The three heroes were already behind bars, and Eiana explained that she had placed a seal on the prison that was impossible to break from the inside. So they better stay put. Tamaki told her to take off the handcuffs then, if it was so secure. She had a point. But then Ryu explained that there was no way the Heroes Alliance would stay quiet if they were locked up like this. They were definitely going to be used as hostages, and the handcuffs were there so they couldn't take their own lives. Eiana actually praised him, saying that for someone so hot-headed, he was surprisingly level-headed. But Ryu had his aura activated, and man, he was pissed. Even the girls were startled by the killing intent radiating from him. The commander recognized that look. Thinking back to her days on the battlefield, she had seen that expression before. The face of someone furious at their own weakness. Just like she had been in the past. She kept staring at Ryu, filled with anger. Then she turned away and said that he was too young. He wouldn't survive for long if he didn't let go of those emotions. If he had stayed calm earlier, he could have at least saved Tamaki or Aoi. Now all three of them were locked up. With that, she left, while they just sat there looking like fools. Ryu clenched his fists in frustration, seething at the fact that the damn woman still acted like some wise mentor even in a situation like this. Walking up the stairs, Eiana was in disbelief that they still hadn't been found. Takafuji was escaping even better than she had expected. Takafuji pauses to think but eventually says it's worth a try. He asks if the rest of the royal family knew about this. Of course, she says they did. That escape route for royalty, she's not even sure if it's worth trying. But just says they don't have any other choice, so that's that. Aaliyah looks back and apologizes to the poor girl who had just fallen asleep. Sadly, she was still too weak. All she could do was thank the maid for everything she'd done up to now. Poor thing, really pulled at the heart. Meanwhile, the army keeps moving forward through the castle, searching for the two of them. Takafuji wants to make the most of this one chance they've got. The only problem is that Royal Escape Route, it's not hard to figure that Aaliyah would try to run through there. Takafuji's feeling pretty down too. No real options, nothing he can do to get them out of this. Then he tells her to wait because they're walking right into an ambush. Not just a few soldiers, he means there's no way through at all. To make it worse, soldiers are coming from behind too, so going back the way they came is out of the question. Naturally, the poor girl is confused. What are they supposed to do now? Is there no way to get through without being seen? All he says is that it's impossible. Looks like they were already expecting them to head for that secret door, and now the place is locked down tight. Aaliyah knows there's nothing they can do. Takafuji's convinced that if they're caught, they won't just be killed, they'll be tortured. Escaping won't be easy at all. He's thinking maybe there's no way for the two of them to get out. Could this be the moment he finally gives up? But she shoots back that she's not giving up. No way is she going to stand still and let herself be killed. She fight until the very end. Suddenly, her expression shifts, and Takafuji, wide-eyed and stunned, looks like a popped balloon. The rascal lit up, realizing her spirit still wasn't broken. It really seemed possible now. He says he used detection and found out there's an enemy army headed their way. She asks if it's a large force, and he says probably. He doesn't know if these people are coming to rescue the royal family or what, but there's a troop coming in from another country. She asks when, and he replies probably by sundown. So in about 15 minutes, they just have to survive until then, and the whole place is going to descend into chaos. The only downside is there's no avoiding a fight, and she just nods that she understands. Takafuji knows this situation is a coin toss, 50-50 at best. Whether they make it out alive or not is going to come down to pure luck. So he says they'll run to the area with fewer soldiers and tells her to watch their backs. That's when the enemy spots them and starts shouting that the princess has been found. Without hesitation, they launch a barrage of arrows. But the girl, out of nowhere, raises a magical barrier. She starts yelling to him that they only need to hold out for 15 minutes. She was going to survive this no matter what. She's completely locked in, holding up that magic barrier. But even so, arrows are slicing past her arm, almost hitting her face. Takafuji tells her to veer right, and wow, she barely makes it. One of the arrows grazes her hair. The soldiers yell to keep advancing and surround them. That's when Takafuji notices they're moving faster than expected. He uses his 3D vision and senses a group closing in from the left. He warns her, and she gets another barrier up quick. The enemies hesitate, stop for a second, but not for long. That shield only held for about 10 seconds. Takafuji's impressed they haven't been sliced up yet. She's exhausted, poor thing, but they keep moving through the halls. The sun's starting to set, but unfortunately, they hit a dead-end room, twisted, closed off, and hopeless. She's losing faith, and Takafuji apologizes. No matter which way he looked, there were soldiers everywhere. No way to escape. Right then, more soldiers arrive, shout out that they found them, and get ready to fire another volley. Aaliyah tells them to hide, and the soldiers debate whether to charge or not. They end up deciding to keep firing instead. The problem is her magic is running out, and at this pace, she won't be able to keep blocking for long. Another barrage comes, and now her shield's shrunk down, smaller and weaker. She's barely holding it together. Explosions are going off in every direction, and the soldiers yell to get ready for the next strike. But she keeps pushing. No one expected her to be this relentless. She puts up another shield and arrows keep flying. That's when she turns and calls out for Takanori while the soldiers cheer, thinking it's all about to be over. Then they realize, wait a minute, one of them's missing. Aaliyah's starting to wear out. The real problem? She hasn't even noticed. Where's Lee Nori? She turns around calling for him, but he doesn't answer. And then it hits her. She just used his bait so he could escape. Looks like that whole story about reinforcements and escaping together was just a lie, just something to keep her fighting. The soldiers are getting ready to fire again while she stands there completely lost about what's going on. But then through the bars, she sees the sun setting and feels something in the air. Someone appears, apologizing for making her wait. From now on, he says he'll handle things. She's stunned, not understanding what's happening. The soldiers are confused too. There's some dark energy in the air, and they're calling to turn on the lights. What is this? The beast within him is starting to show. He tells Fenrir to take care of them. The fools didn't even notice the shadow behind them, and damn, what just happened? That was brutal. Biting into skulls, ripping through necks. The soldiers are panicking, screaming for help, trying to figure out what's going on. But by then, they've all become dinner. Just those creepy little horror movie hands scurrying off, and the whole hallway soaked in blood and swallowed by darkness. Aaliyah's collapsed on the ground while the soldier tries to make sense of what's happening. They're calling out for the lieutenant while Takafuji stands there with a smirk. The guy's still freaking out, and our boy calmly warns him, no matter how much you scream, no one's coming, and no one's going to hear you. The guy jumps and spins around, asking where Takafuji Linori came from. But our guy just calls out to Fenrir and asks if he's done yet. Right then, Fenrir appears behind the soldier, saying only this one's left, but honestly, they were all too weak. The soldier loses it, slamming back against the wall, begging for help. And Takafuji just says, I saw you kill plenty of people. Seems fair that you die as payment, don't you think? Not a very complicated logic, but it's fair. He's just standing there, cool as ever. The guy stammers, are you Takafuji? And all he gets in response is, who knows? Then the wolf sinks its teeth in, another one down. Man, that hero of ours. She really held on, didn't she? She's lying in a pool of blood now, too. She calls out for him, saying she's using what little magic she has left to try to stop the bleeding. But wow, our guy is ice cold. He says it's a good call, but goodbye. She's lost too much blood. There's no way she's making it out alive. Then she asks if he's had this power the whole time, and he just tells her not to look at it like that. Yes, he has this power, but he can only use it when the moon is out. That whole reinforcement story? Obviously fake. He could have survived alone. But he said it, just to give her a little hope. Looking at her now, he remembers those eyes full of vengeance and determination. Even in that state, she still hadn't given up. And if that was the case, maybe he wanted to see what she was capable of. Wait, what? Out of nowhere, he asks, are you a virgin? She wants to know how he knows that. Okay, now I'm kind of scared about what he's offering. He tells her there's a way for her to survive, but she'd have to become his servant, his subordinate. By accepting death as a human, she could keep living as something beyond human. The choice was hers. I'm just concerned about the beginning of that offer. As weird as it sounds, she's lying in a pool of blood. She remembers Amanda and the maid and realizes she doesn't have a choice. Even if she had to sell her soul to a demon, she wanted to live. The devilish one says it was a great answer. He grabs her by the neck and says, just like she said, he's much closer to being a demon than a god. Then he bites. Blood starts flowing through her body. He places her down gently and tells the creatures nearby to keep watch. Their job now is to protect this woman until she wakes up. Meanwhile, back with the king, some soldiers arrive reporting that the second princess is surrounded. He says he understands and tells them to proceed with the mission. A great nation was about to rise, and this was no time for hesitation. He says he understands and tells them to proceed with the mission. A great nation was about to rise, and this was no time for hesitation. The king was eager to put an end to the hunger spreading through the country and rescue the abandoned orphans. Sounds a little too noble to be true. I seriously doubt it. But then he says he also feels guilty for having done nothing before, and I don't know what to make of him anymore. He knows it's been a long journey to get there. It was tough finding comrades who shared his ideals, but it was finally time to rebuild the nation. Except no, it wasn't. Takafuji already launched an attack and blood went flying. The soldiers freeze in shock and look who's back. Eiana, the fierce blonde, is here again. She knew something shady was going on. Yeah, the king's already been sliced up like a cartoon steak. Our guy holds up that basketball-sized thing in his hand and declares that with this, their plan had failed. There was no reason to keep fighting. So now what? More soldiers charge in, yelling that they're going to kill. But right then he summoned his blades, saying he actually prefers this option. Since everyone went this far, they might as well keep killing each other until no one's left standing. Boom. Take that to the chest. Fools. Our guy thanks them, saying if they manage to hold out until the end, that'll make him even happier. Meanwhile, some girls are running through the castle, asking each other if they heard that. Screams, people in agony. It was coming from the room where the king was, so they better hurry. When they arrive, who's there? Our guy just standing in swag mode, hands in his pockets. He looks up and says he remembers very clearly. These were Eiana's top knights, the Valkyrie squad. One of them calls out to Takafuji, wanting to know if he was the one who did all this. He looks back and asks if he said yes, would she actually fight him seriously? Man, everybody's already floating in rage. One of the girls grits her teeth and charges in. But, whoa, she took a blade. What? Thought he was just gonna dodge. Then her expression changes. Takafuji asks why she's showing her emotions so openly. Was it someone she cared about? Not sure what he did, but it looks like he hit her with an illusion, stabbed her, and finished her off in a mutual strike. The other one's confused, and he's just there, untouchable. The girl calls out for Miranda and Alice, telling them to get ready. This guy was dangerous, and they had to be careful. Takafuji's a bit impressed. He just killed one of their friends and are still composed. One of them, holding a weapon, says she'll aim for a vital spot. Takafuji uses analysis. He notices their weapons are magical, completely different from anything he's seen before. But suddenly, his foot's trapped in ice. One of them says she got him, and the other says she'll handle the rest. An arrow almost hits him, another one with a magical tool. The speed at which these girls activated their gear was on a whole other level. It literally shredded part of the boy's face. Like, for real, she blitzed past him in a flash. And she even turned back to say she was going to win now. But the guy's smiling even while getting slashed. Didn't remember him being this tough, but yeah, turns out he is. And that's exactly what they weren't ready for. He was still moving. But how? She starts to realize he's avoiding counterattacks so he doesn't get hit himself. But that was the worst decision he could have made. She charges in for another strike, but suddenly, she's caught in threads. Actually, not even her. Her teammates all drop to the floor. At this point, it's starting to look like he's going to wipe them all out. Then he says he likes watching these coordinated attacks, but unfortunately, he's running short on time. So he'll give her the chance for a one-on-one duel. As a warm-up, he'll start by facing the squad's commander. Then Mike can't believe he plans to fight Eiana after this. Clearly, the guy's insane. He tells her he knows she's probably the most skilled one among them. Fighting without having to worry about anyone else would let her truly show what she's capable of. So why was she still stuck in a group like this? She grits her teeth and charges at him. He blocks while she screams at him to shut up. He didn't have the right to speak like he knew her. Things are heating up. Takafuji shifts his hand to the side, pulls out a little blade, and deflects another strike. Meanwhile, she remembers when someone told her she had talent. Eiana introducing Maria to everyone, asking the girls to give her a chance. Maria looks so gloomy, all flat-faced like a biscuit. But the girls came in, asking questions, introducing themselves, and she started blushing. Back to the present, she tells Takafuji not to insult her comrades. She would never forgive that. He just smiles and says he likes her fighting spirit. He wants her to keep coming at him. While the lunatics celebrating, shouting for her to come at him with everything she's got, suddenly he pauses, maybe unsure if she's even paying attention. Turns out, she completely ignores him and rushes over to help her friends up, saying she's not alone. She's got the Valkyrie squad with her. But then, out of nowhere, she hears a scream behind her, and bam, she takes a bite to the shoulder. She starts calling out for Alice and Miranda, asking what's going on, and Takafuji simply tells her that, unfortunately, her friends are no longer with them. They had already turned into ghouls, and now the real fight could begin. He says he kind of wanted this to last a bit longer, but sadly, it's time to end things. Then he waves goodbye and says the four of them can have fun together now. Man, the guy's brutal. Left Maria there to be eaten by her own friends. We already knew Takafuji was dark, but damn, he's getting even darker. Now all that's left is the finishing touch to this whole story. Outside, soldiers are being devoured, and Eiana comes running in a hurry. That guy's standing there with a smirk, and she could tell something was off. In the throne room, there's blood everywhere, and she's getting a bad feeling. She glances to the side, and instinct hits hard. She freezes for a second and sees the severed head. She walks over and gently picks up the hand. Unfortunately, when she gets a gut feeling something happened, it usually turns out to be true. Meanwhile, under the moonlight, someone says, "Isn't the night beautiful?" In his world, there's a saying used for moments like this when making a confession. Eiana asks if it was Lee Nori, and he replies that the head is a gift for her. Our guy's about to unleash chaos, no doubt. She's standing there holding the king's head. Then he calls out to Lee Nori, asking if those wings of his don't belong to a demon. Lee just gives a half glance like he couldn't care less. She tells him she knows those wings are the mark of someone who sold their soul for power. It's ridiculous, abandoning all pride just to go that far. He says he doesn't really understand what she means. Everything he did to survive. It's not that deep. She tells him that just trying to survive isn't a good enough reason. What? She wants him to die. Cruel. She slaps her hand on her chest and says she fights for the nation. In this world, having a strong reason to live was necessary, but it had to be for family, not for personal desires. Even if it was revenge that didn't justify it. And if she remembers correctly, she once told him he should never become a demon. Wait, did she just apologize? What? That's harsh. Wow, Takafuji, are you just gonna take that? He puts a hand over his face, clearly not pleased, and opens up about it, saying her brother was truly noble. Even after she betrayed everyone, she still treats him like some student. What a shame. Her plan had failed. And now he tells her it's time to wake up. There's no one left here to fight beside her. He calls out her name and tells her to look around. Wolves are crawling out of the walls, dragging soldiers' bodies. There was no one else left in this place. No more soldiers, no more Valkyrie squad. Everyone who came with her and everyone she was counting on gone. The only one left from her squad was her. Sure, a few people were just neutralized, their lives could still be spared. But of course, that would come at the cost of her sacrificing herself. Still, it's not so easy to understand. He brought all this chaos upon her, but now he's kind of disappointed. Maybe there wouldn't be a good fight after all. He considers using mental interference to force her to fight, though honestly, she already seemed pretty fired up. He plays it off like he's bored of saying none of this is really exciting anymore. So he's going to be nice about it, since he already killed the king. If she dies too, it's all settled. As for the other soldiers, he'll try to spare as many as he can. But Eiana draws her sword. He asks her what she thinks she's doing. But she's dead serious and slams her blade into the ground, activating her aura. And with that, she says this is a moment of silence for her comrades, those who were humiliated and killed, and also for the ones who were ready to die following her decision. Looks like she's about to go all in on Takafuji. Was that what he wanted? Well, now he's going to get it. He stays calm and asks, in other words, if she's really willing to abandon all the knights. But she replies that she dedicated her whole life to training those knights, and now with her own hands, she'll be the one to kill every single one of them that's under his control. Takafuji, caught off guard, says that if she does that, there won't be anyone left to govern the country. The whole place will collapse. She just answers that there are still people, ordinary people, left. Even if all the nobles, soldiers, and the royal family are gone, they're just side details. As long as the people still exist in the nation, it can be rebuilt. And that's exactly why she'll keep fighting him. He suddenly pauses, then smiles. She's confused. Why did he look satisfied? That's when he apologizes for underestimating her. Bluffing now would just be wrong. He's going to respond with full honesty. The corpses on the walls, they were just what was left of soldiers who failed to become vampires. There's no saving them anymore. The truth is, everyone she counted on is already dead. Right now, she's nothing more than food to them. Damn, now we're getting the full villain backstory. Eiana calls out Takafuji Nori's name and says he's way beyond redemption. That's when she draws her sword and its glow is blinding. She shouts that he's her enemy. Takafuji feels something strange and starts backing off, and with a single slash, she tears through everything. He's stunned. She was way more dangerous than he thought. She had finally revealed her trump card. She'd drawn the ancestral weapon. He never imagined that all of his ghouls could be wiped out in an instant. And that look in her eyes, that was exactly what he wanted. That was what he'd been hoping for. He spreads his arms and calls out to the commander, saying he's going to use everything he's got to face her. Right now, they were enemies. Eiana stands there, staring him down, and her aura keeps surging, again and again. You can feel it everywhere. But Takafuji warns her that several of her allies are still standing. He wants to see how long she'll last. And then he spots the Valkyrie squad. Eiana glances to the side and remembers the girls. In her memory, she lets out a single slash, tearing through everything. Wolves charge, but her sword slices through like butter. She asks what the problem is he just going to stand there and watch? If he's not going to make a move, then she'll go first. Takafuji's clearly shaken. Even his stealthy attacks aren't working. And honestly, she seems way stronger than him. Close combat was not a good idea. He remembers a lesson where he once asked, what was Captain Eiana's greatest strength? She answered that she had always been pretty strong. And when she became commander, the queen blessed her with an ancient weapon, type of item that becomes far sharper and more precise when infused with magic. So yeah, that's why she's slicing like that. Not that they're her friends anymore, but still, those guys were getting shredded like paper. She was deflecting everything. Takafuji's attacks weren't doing a thing. That dark enhanced human he trusted so much, she was being obliterated. Watching Eiana's sword, he couldn't help but admire it. That thing really could cut through anything, and she didn't even need magic circles. Suddenly, she unleashes two massive hammer-like punches from above, and now he's even more confused. She rips through his wing, and then she asks, what now? What's he going to do without any way to escape? He tries to steady himself by sticking a knife into the wall, knowing the last thing he can allow is for her to get close. He throws out a few more attacks, but she's cutting through them like it's nothing. He keeps trying to stay pinned to the wall, desperate, but of course, she easily gets closer. Somehow, he flips through the air, managing to slip past her back, but damn, his arm gets sliced clean off. The hand went flying. He lands behind her and says he thought he was doing pretty well. However, it seems there are truly no blind spots in her attacks. He's still bold. She says he's actually pretty agile and should become an acrobat. He apologizes, but unfortunately, that's not really his thing. At that moment, he notices the pure mithril sword in her hands. The item not only allowed her to channel her mana into the sword, but also to use any magic without a magic circle. He then says that this mithril stuff is pretty effective against a demonic boy, huh? She says that's exactly right. He probably heard it from the second princess. So he was an intelligent boy. He thanks her for paying so much attention to him. However, she keeps approaching. What she didn't expect was a knife flying from his hand. But with a no-look-past trick shot, she defends. The poor boy is starting to get startled, and she then says he's full of amusing techniques. She wants to know what his next trick is. "Damn, are you seeing this fight, bro? It's been a while since I've seen such an insane one like that." He laughs that she noticed, but activates his biming ability anyway. Eiana easily cuts the threads. He notices that nothing he's doing is working. At that moment, she's about to advance again. However, she's hit by a barrage of attacks. Up on the wall is Fenrir, casting lightning. That sly dog Takafuji, he got out of her barrier's range. He actually placed Fenrir outside and ordered him to attack. She says that his familiar really has a good strategy. It's just a shame that from so far away it's easy for her to detect. He realizes the wretch didn't even go for the magic. Her natural reaction time is just insane. She sends another hammer and Fenrir dodges. Our boy keeps scrambling, telling Fenrir to stay out of her reach and keep attacking, while at the same time throwing his own knives. But Thick Blonde defends herself and says the sheer number of attacks is impressive. But how could he keep up this pace? He was thinking of draining her energy, but she's conserving a lot, destroying everything he sends with ease. The way things are going, they'll run out of knives and mana long before she does. He's trying to think of a plan considering her barrier is covering the entire area. Her reaction is fast enough to ignore any volume of his attacks, not to mention that Fenrir's accurate attacks aren't being accurate at all. He starts to notice a certain contradiction. If her reaction time is so good, why is her barrier extremely close to her body? So he decides to get closer, thinking there must be a weak point in that. The commander wonders if he's coming at her like a madman because he thinks she's too distracted by defense. His mind is too simple. It's not as if she can't deal with it. And man, she immediately goes after him. She had raised a barrier behind her and damn son. He got his hand cut off. Our boy is going to be just a stump soon. And then she says his end has come. All she has to do now is run this sword through his head, and it's over. He, however, smiles and tells her it won't be that easy. From beneath her, the wolf emerges and takes a bite out of her leg. His wolf, it came from beneath her shadow, and he says that since her detection is extremely close range, the only way in was through the shadows. At this moment, she doesn't know whether to deal with the thing on her foot or the man approaching her. Since the wolf seemed much more defenseless, she decides to deal with Takafuji. The problem is that she then notices he still has one hand and he smiles, saying that unfortunately, she let her guard down. Now she's scared, wondering if just her sword won't be enough. Takafuji keeps getting closer and is almost at her barrier. Suddenly, she thinks something about hypnosis and Takafuji says she looked right into his eyes. A barrier appears in front of her, her eyes turn yellow, but she instantly cuts through the illusion. He's shocked that even magic circles could be cut by that sword. He then activates another spell and gets some distance. The wolf on her foot is cut down and she demands to know what he did. He replies, "How should I know?" And she tells him to just say why he's laughing like an idiot, because he says she's funny too. Wasn't she enjoying it? She replies, "How should I know? Damn, they're just trading barbs." He tells her to look up. He had sent some attacks up there, right? As always, she defended herself. Takafuji was eager for the grand finale. Eyes glowing, gauntlet glowing, circles appearing behind her. She sees another formation and wonders what he's planning to do. She wanted to send another slash, but at that moment, he emerges from it himself. She's a bit confused and he thinks that, just as he predicted, her first reaction was to try and cut it. His plan was to stop her arm so she couldn't finish her attack. However, man, he starts screaming at the same time. She looks frightened. I think he went in for a big bite on Lil Blondie. The problem for her is that she can't fall for this hypnosis. But at the same time, her foot is injured. She knew that if she focused on the barrier, she wouldn't have time. So she goes for an all-or-nothing move. She uses the air hammer magic to propel herself, and man, her arm moves a mile a minute. Obviously, Takafuji realizes what the damn woman did, but still the thing went through him like butter G's. The kid is in disbelief, calling her name. And what's this? A basketball spinning on the floor. Yeah, ours boy head. At the same time, at least Fenrir is coming from behind to get revenge. But obviously, she just sends a slash in its direction. The little wolf dissolves. Our boy is just there, agonizing. Meanwhile, she exhausted laughs, saying goodbye to Takafuji Linori. That crazy girl thinks everything's chill under the moonlight, holding our boy's head in her hands. It had been a long time since she had to go all out like this, but she couldn't afford to fall now. Just as she starts thinking something about the second princess, bam, her hand, the one holding his head, gets sliced off. She's a little confused, and from the looks of it, he bit it off. Then she turns around and boom, takes a kick to the headless body and crashes into the wall. The poor thing's exhausted, and when she opens her eyes, there he is, our guy, holding his own head. He fits it back in place like it's nothing and says he's fine, even cracking his neck. She's left wondering how it's even possible that not even Mithril worked on him. Showing his arm, he says it's funny how everyone assumes Mithril would work just because it's supposed to kill demons. Even though that might be true in this world, unfortunately, he's not from here, so the rules are different for him. She's still trying to make sense of it, and he explains that he confirmed it back when she cut off his hand. Eiana realizes he had deliberately pretended he couldn't regenerate it, just to get her to lower her guard. Definitely a smart move. Takafuji's over there thinking that from the beginning he'd suspected that the brain wasn't all that important for vampires. During his fight with Fenrir, all his vertebrae had been shattered, and yet he kept running like nothing had happened, which made no sense. The truth is, a vampire's heart is the real core, Everything else can be destroyed as long as the heart stays intact. Then he says it's just by luck that he's the one who came out on top. Sadly, he didn't have much experience against someone as skilled as her. She replies that she understands, and he lets out his sigh, saying he had to give it everything he had. And once again, that crazy woman's laughing. She figured that out too. He stares at her and calls out, "Man, she's wrecked." Then he tells her he's going to take all her power. Turning her into a ghoul would be way too boring, and that's why he's saying goodbye. Damn, did he really kill her? You're insane, Takafuji. Sometime later, honestly, I even forgotten those guys were still around. He shows up and says Ryu really made a mess. The fool calls out to Lee Nori, who says he brought the magic key to set them free. The girls rush over all excited, saying they were so worried about him. He simply replies that he knows very well, then triggers hypnosis and tells them they should be more concerned about themselves first. Ryu shouts, asking what he's doing, and tells Lee Nori to stop. But our guy just tells him to chill. He doesn't intend to hurt him. Then bam, Ryu falls under hypnosis too, and our guy tells him to leave. But Ryu's confused, wondering why he can't move his body. Our guy realizes this bastard actually has enough willpower to resist it. Even so, he calls the two girls over and says he's got a little favor to ask. He wants them to clean up the mess he's been making. He explains that a lot has happened. She's supposed to take this staff, make sure to burn the whole place down, and make it look like he died too. The girl's so deep under hypnosis, she says it's amazing. And she really do that? He tells her it'll be easy if she just stops subconsciously limiting her powers. Then he asks Aaliyah to put a barrier around them so they won't die in the fire. Next thing you know, the girl's screaming, saying she feels like it's really possible. She's going to set everything on fire. Ryu calls out to Tamaki, saying there are still people alive in there. She'll end up killing everyone. But she just replies that it's fine. She's going to give it her all. He keeps yelling, but the sparks are already flying, and boom, fire everywhere. The entire mansion explodes, and from far away, you could see the castle going up in flames. Even inside Aoi's barrier, which should have offered complete protection, Takafuji's still feeling the heat. That's what you'd expect from a hero, blessed with divine power. But in front of all those flames, someone was watching the castle crumble. Looks like they were remembering Amanda, who passed on, and the poor little maid who went with her. And let's not forget, she lost her parents too. Damn, poor thing lost everyone. On the other hand, at least she's still alive, living her new life in the new swag. But hold on, remember how this whole story began? She shows up with that same expression, calling out to Takafuji. Could she be the one who brought him into this world? But how would that even be possible? No idea. He asks if everything's over, and she wants to know if he finished cleaning up. He looks surprised. She already knew what he was going to do. She answers that the moment he entered her body, the knowledge came with it. Wait, entered her body? Must have been with that bite, right? She just didn't expect her hair color to change too. Of course, he says it's better to have a new hair color than for her to have died. She says it's weird though, it feels like she's kind of blocked by his thoughts and words. She's not sure how hard it'll be to hit him, and he thanks her. But apparently, it wasn't that hard. She smacks him to the ground. Even lying there, he says things might not be so bad after all. Besides, he thinks the new hair color suits her. Oh, now that she's at Takafuji too, right? All cheerful now. Then she says it's true. She didn't lose everything. She survived and gained a bit of freedom. The cost was just her entire family, her sister, and everything else. But she's okay with it because she's found something she wants to do. She's not sure if in this state as a servant, she'll ever be stronger than him. But that's exactly what she wants, to earn back her true freedom. Takafuji's a bit impressed and says it's a good idea. Poor thing, she doesn't even realize, right? Being under a servant contract like that, she's got no chance at all. He says that now that the little princess has made up her mind, it can head to the place he's been using as a base. She's confused as he starts walking off, but he tells her that after explaining everything, it's better they get away from there first. She's already all stunned and impressed because, what the hell? He's using that old Fenrir barrier that hides everything. Even set up his little shack inside it. She wants to know how he built something so complex, and he says he just used his forging skills. Even so, she complains that the place is kinda plain, right? Not to mention too small for two people. Takafuji, poor guy, just tells her that of course it's going to be smaller than the castle she used to live in. No way to hide something that big anymore. And she better get used to living in a tiny house that doesn't even fit a bed. She sits down next to him and says she doesn't care. She never saw herself as royalty anyway. And besides, not having a bed is fine. She'll just sleep right there next to him. After all, she survived thanks to him and doesn't owe anything to anyone. He's a bit thrown off, and she says this is the only way she can repay him. Girl, what are you thinking? What are you trying to offer here? That's what Takafuji's wondering. He says that from the looks of it, he won't even have to give an order, and she replies that she's ready. He tells her to take it off, and boom, she's healed. My God, what's going on here? Dude, seriously. And she stands up all fired up, asking if it was good enough. Takafuji activates his special vision, weapon forging vision. Oh, you silly dog, gave her an outfit, didn't you? She's a little confused. He says it's weird seeing her in those rags. He clarifies that becoming a subordinate wasn't meant in that sense. And besides, he chooses who he spends his time with. For her to offer herself like that, she must be real confident. Damn, he just shut her down, rejected, and embarrassed her. She's left there all shaken. She thanks him anyway and runs off while he thinks she really is a little princess. Outside, the poor girl's muttering that she messed up. Why did she try something like that? She just wanted to show she was willing and motivated. In the end, she was the only one who survived, betrayed her country, and left everyone behind. Maybe all of this is some kind of punishment. Then Takafuji suddenly asks if the punishment she thought she deserved was sleeping with him. She jumps, startled, and he says it's surprising how rude she is. She's confused and tries to apologize again, saying he misunderstood and that he has no idea how grateful she really is. He doesn't seem to fully believe her. Desperate, she begs him to believe that everything she's saying is true. Even though she's no longer human, she survived, and she doesn't regret any of it. Then he says there's something he wants to try and asks if she wants to help. Excited, she says that if it's something she can do, absolutely. He explains that he got several skills back at the castle, but there's one he can't use alone. She's already pumped, saying that if that's the case, she can definitely help, until he says it's a sexual skill. And she's just like, wait, what do you mean? Right then, he pulls her clothes and says, you said you'd help, so now you've got to be ready. Besides, it's just a little touch before bed. She tells him that kind of thing isn't healthy, but he just says she promised she'd do anything, so she's got to accept it. Man, in the end, he made all that fuss and still went through with it. Damn, Takafuji, you scumbag. In the next chapter, while Aaliyah soars through the skies, he's thinking about all the skills he got. Swordsmanship, cooking, cleaning, doing laundry. Man, there was no shortage of new stuff. And he decides to level everything up to the max right away. Then he tells little Miss Witch to come down, and man, he wonders if it was him or her who got the genius skill. He's impressed that the girl's gotten seriously good at flying fast. He asks if she liked the clothes and if she wants any adjustments, and she says no. It's easy to move around in them. He's surprised. Unlike him, she clearly knows how to use her powers without holding back, no matter if it's day or night. Then he hands her his sword and tells her to give it a try. As soon as she draws it, bam, thing lights up with a red aura. She looks at it and says it's a beautiful blade. Wants to know if he used some kind of transformation. He explains he tried to reinforce the sword Eiana used with dark magic. It turned into something like an absolute ancient blade of black power, but that name's too long, so he's just calling it Black Sword now. Aaliyah's impressed that he's got a weapon of that level now. He says it might sound amazing, but when he tried using it, nothing happened. Probably because he doesn't have the type of magic that this world accepts. He wonders if it's going to be that way for everything, and says that yeah, unfortunately, it probably will. That's exactly why he's giving the sword to her, hoping she can master it. And let's be real, the design of the sword after the transformation is seriously badass. She kind of throws a playful threat, asking if he's sure he wants her to get that strong. He replies that she can try all she wants. He's got tons of ways to get stronger. Besides, a strength contest shouldn't rely on weapons. Also, she needs to understand because he can't use that weapon, he's able to learn things that only someone from his world can. She says she knows it's because he doesn't follow the rules of this world that he can keep getting all these new abilities. It's going to be an interesting fight to see who ends up stronger. She says that part's already settled. He asks how, and she points at her fangs. That's when he realizes, damn, she inherited everything he had. But instead of focusing on that, she's busy hugging Fenrir, saying how adorable he is. He tries to explain that thing's a savage beast, and Fenrir immediately hides. She's a bit sad about that, saying she wanted to see more of the wolf, and he asks if she's the type who loves animals. She says not really, but she ended up taking care of all the ones her sister got tired of. Then Takafuji turns around and says it's time for them to leave, probably to the nearest nation to gather some intel. A place where a hero hasn't been summoned would be the best choice. But she tells him there's no such place, man. There's not a single country in this world that hasn't summoned heroes. He's confused, and she explains that there's an alliance called the Alliance of 32 Heroes. Every country is required to summon a set number. He thinks that's overkill. Like, why so many heroes, seriously? That's a big problem for him. It means there's a bunch of people out there who might want to hunt him down. That includes that blonde guy from that one fight who disappeared and the annoying Ryu and his buddies who vanished too. He knows they're bound to become a problem sooner or later. The next chapter kicks off with someone talking about beastmen, magens, elves, half-dragons, even humans. She asks that all of them be used as vessels for his return. An eye begins to form, then a hand takes shape. Yep, that's probably the Demon King those 32 heroes were summoned to fight. Shock of the century, right? Lord Ignoia, the demon lord of this world, has been summoned. Meanwhile, look who's walking around the sea all confident. The place is buzzing with activity when someone calls out to her. Some old man hands her some bread, saying it's to thank her for helping him the other day. She's a little confused, but the guy keeps handing her stuff. Everyone's calling her Eri. It seems that's the nickname she's been using to hide her real name. It's been a while since she and Takafuji arrived in the city of Regan, a place known for its block-style architecture and also considered a holy nation. So yeah, the church there is super powerful. The good news is that the city has an adventurer's guild, which is perfect for them to earn some money. Lenore is going by the name Kiri, and she's the one who always has to go out and grab food and everything else. Meanwhile, the guy just wants to sleep. But when she says she's back, bam, he gets launched out of the house with a bloody nose and smacks right into the wall. Doesn't seem too serious though, since he's down there crying for help. You could already feel the pressure. This intense woman says it's impressive he didn't lose consciousness after that hit. Didn't make any sense for someone who goes around flirting with women to have that kind of toughness. She clearly liked him. And her name? Fanatique Lesejos. Hold up, no way that's her real name. My god, it really is her name. She says she's going to rehabilitate the boy. Grabs his face while Takafuji tries to figure out what this woman just said. Aaliyah, on the other hand, is just watching in total confusion, not understanding what's going on. But yeah, looks like she didn't like that interaction one bit. And that's how her new life began in this country. Now from Takafuji's perspective, Dude's been hitting up taverns non-stop since joining the guild. Like, what's going on? Did he kill everyone and now he's just chillin'? I mean, fine, I'll give him a pass to unwind a bit. The bartender's asking him to pay up, but he just tells her to keep it on tab. If he runs out of money, he'll just dip into Aaliyah's cash. And while our guy's turning into a full-on drunk, Aaliyah's out here grinding quest after quest, earning the title Black Rose. The adventurers gave her that name after seeing her take down hordes of monsters, twirling her little dress. And Takafuji? Just soaking it all in and enjoying life while she rakes in the gold. No one at the guild can figure out why the Black Rose hangs around a dude like him. Then some guy asks why he doesn't try earning money himself. Says lounging around while a woman pays his way isn't exactly masculine. Takafuji just tells him to mind his own business, and he notices the same guy who used to drink alone in the corner is now trying to sit next to him. As he drinks to build poison resistance, he's also slowly figuring out how the city works. The only downside is he's drinking so much that people are starting to avoid him. Suddenly, the doorbell rings, and in comes that wild fanatique Lesejos with a weird name. Takafuji wonders what a cleric is doing in a place like this, and of course, he immediately invites her to have a little drink with him. But she says drinking that much isn't good for the body or the soul. Everything in moderation. It's better that way. He, however, starts staring at the mark on her forehead, saying he can't quite see it clearly, and asks her to come closer. Dude, I don't know what happened there. Did she lean in, or did he try to pull her? I think he went to grab her and she dodged, saying he can't just touch something like that. And that's when Aaliyah walked in, and everyone in the bar saw him getting slammed to the floor, all bloodied. She sees the crazy woman grabbing his face, amazed he hasn't passed out completely. The guys in the bar are cracking up, saying the drunk totally deserved it for lazing around all day. Finally, someone was gonna knock some sense into that guy. Fanatique says that's exactly what she plans to do. Her god doesn't forgive anyone. Then she declares that in the name of her god, she's taking the boy with her. But then she notices the Black Rose staring her down and asks if she needs anything. Poor Aaliyah, totally embarrassed, just says no. Like, wait, she's not gonna save our boy? Oh no, turns out she does want to know what that woman's planning to do with the guy. Oh, don't be like that. She says the dude hit on her. But honestly, it's impressive how tough he is. Good thing she rescued him then. So yeah, bye-bye. Everyone's a bit confused, staring at Aaliyah, waiting to see what she's going to do. Some even tell her that she's finally gotten rid of that boy. But right then, she drops the bag, tells everyone to hold it. Her face goes completely red, and she takes off running after the guy. Everyone's head over heels, wondering why she's into weirdos like him. Cut to another part of town, and Fanatique slams the poor guy onto a bench and brings that big ol' hand right to his face. She's trying to use some holy magic on him. Says she's gonna go easy. The woman has zero respect for our guy, seriously. But the big ol' hand was just for a healing spell. Takafuji's all messed up, and she asks if he's feeling better, tells him to stop drinking so much already. He asks who she is, and of course, here comes the weirdo intro. Fanatique, the Templar, or just Fauna if he wants. But the most important thing is that they go say a little prayer now. Meanwhile, Aaliyah's trailing behind them, dying of jealousy, mad that they're holding hands. Like, what is going on here? Is that kind of stuff normal in this world or what? Then someone says that woman is dangerous. It's Fenrir, right there beside her. He says he's not sure if his master noticed, but he picked up a strong divine protection scent coming off her. Aaliyah looks confused and Fenrir gives her a little wink. He's sure she noticed too. That's why she needs to keep following the boy. Inside the church, Fana tells Takafuji to enjoy the moment. It's lucky to be in a place as incredible as this. Then she asks his name and he says it's Kiri while staring at the statues, asking what they are. She tells him that's the main goddess. He doesn't need to worry, just copy what she does in prayer. Bring the 5 fingers together to represent the main goddess, then the other 4, close your eyes and pray. So now he's just playing along, not sure how he even ended up there, but hey, might as well have some fun while he's at it. He starts thinking about how he's never actually prayed before in his entire life, but while he's praying, someone, or something, seems to notice his presence. Fana looks a little startled. He starts feeling like something's watching him, like he's connected to something all of a sudden. He wonders if it's Fana's doing, but some other instinct tells him it's not her. And whatever this is, it doesn't feel like normal magic or any physical phenomenon. It's like something is literally watching his soul, and he's not happy about it. He demands to know who the hell is messing with him like that, then says he doesn't know who it is, but they better get the hell out of his head. And just like that, the connection seems to vanish. Fana says she noticed he was praying with more passion than she expected. He must have realized how beautiful it is. Now that his heart's been purified, it's time to move on to the next step. Takafuji, though, was just staring at that smiling statue, curious about this mysterious power now. He knows he'll need to come back and figure out what really happened in that place. Somewhere else, two women are talking. One with white hair says the connection was broken, but one with blue hair agrees she never imagined a human could pull that off. And somewhere in the shadows, the garden host squad now knows exactly who Takafuji is, or rather who Kiri really is. The bell rings and our boy Takafuji is back at the bar. That bearded guy is still there alone, right? I don't know if I'm crazy, but that dude kinda looks like the Demon King. Just hit me now. 10 out of 10. And he says our boy's looking good. Dang, when did Takafuji get beat up that bad? Alright, that was Fanatique who totally wrecked him in broad daylight when he was all weak. Just wait till nighttime, woman. Let's see what he does to you. He's just thinking to himself that this lunatic, who calls herself a Templar, suddenly started attacking him out of nowhere. And the problem is, her hits hurt. A lot. Not just because she's strong, but because he's a vampire and she's using light-based attacks. Then she says she noticed back at the tavern that he has an exceptionally sharp eye. Too bad his body can't keep up with it. Once again, he's surprised by how sharp she is. But she couldn't care less and keeps hitting him, saying he'll get used to it eventually. While he's begging for a break, Aaliyah's off to the side watching it all, saying the poor guy is really suffering. Maybe they should help him. If this keeps up, there won't be anything left of him. But Fenrir reminds her that Takafuji asked them not to interfere unless it was a real emergency. Besides, he's pretty sure the guy could escape anytime he wanted, so maybe he has some other goal they don't understand. And finally, his goal is reached. Time to run. Back at the bar, the bearded guy says he gets it now. He's impressed that the kid actually managed to escape that maniac. But Templars in this world? Yeah. They kill in the name of offering things to the main goddess. They've got all kinds of powerful tools, and the biggest problem with dealing with them is the strategies they use. That's why he tells Takafuji not to get too involved and to forget about becoming a Templar himself. It's not gonna suit him. Takafuji replies that yeah, he definitely felt that wasn't his thing. But what he wants to know is how is this guy so sure he can't use magical tools? Right in the middle of that chat, boom, Fanatique shows up again. Girl doesn't rest. She tells him he runs well, but it's time to get back to training. Seriously though, dude went right back to the place he got captured the first time. Genius move. The bearded guy wonders if the two of them are actually close friends. Like he knew our boy was a bit of a perv, but he didn't think he'd go as far as letting himself get beat up just to have her around. Takafuji was trying to come up with a strategy to deal with that kind of magic, but at this rate, he was going to die before figuring it out. That's why, knowing the only thing that worked, he played the card, he suggested they go back to the church for a little prayer session, and of course she was thrilled. She's all giddy, saying she can't believe he wants to come pray to the goddess. Truly, his heart must be changing. But really, the guy's just trying to escape her torturous training and dig deeper into that strange phenomenon from before. When he gets back to that spot, he immediately feels that the sensation of being watched is gone. He wonders now if the master and the other worshippers are actually connected to someone else. And wait, why is he calling that girl master now? What he does notice, though, is that since his detection skill can't sense who it is, it's probably some power from another world. Maybe, like his own abilities, it didn't originate from this place. He decides to use analysis on everything around him. It's not the statue, not the people, not the clothes. Then suddenly, he detects a strange substance. His eyes light up as he says he's found what he was looking for. The strange sacred stone seems to be the thing connecting to the so-called goddess. That was the source of the sensation that made him feel like he was linked to something. But he clearly remembers that blonde goddess, and this definitely doesn't seem like her. Maybe he just picked a fight with the real gods of this world. He decides that's enough info for now. Just then, Fanatique turns bright red, startled. There was someone else there. Apparently, it's this guy named Lord Raven, the capital's hero and captain of the Holy Knights. Years ago, he defended the whole city from a monster horde, and now people treat him like a living legend. Takafuji just thinks he's her superior and doesn't find him that impressive. Meanwhile, she waves him goodbye, saying she'll catch up with him at the tavern later. Dude just got abandoned. Our guy figures this dude can't be that much stronger than Eiana and tries to run an analysis on him. But the moment he does, the guy suddenly whips around and Takafuji has to dive for cover. He's not sure if the guy noticed the analysis, but he definitely felt something. And yeah, this could get risky. His girls start asking if he's okay, and he just says something about a weird smell. Wait, was it the scent of his own kind? Could that guy be another summoned hero? Yeah, it would make sense. A little while later, stuff's getting wrecked and Aaliyah's just sitting there, bored out of her mind, watching the two of them fight. Looks like Takafuji's been training with Fanatique all day, and they're barely even talking. That's what's making her so bored. Fanatique is trying to land some of her holy hammer strikes, saying he's finally learning how to dodge. He thanks her, kind of unsure if that's the right thing to say. Since that fight with Eiana, he's learned how dangerous magical tools can be. But Fanatique wants to know if he's just going to stay on defense forever. He's thinking about it, remembering those black knives of his. But the problem is, they rely on dark magic. So he just tells her to forget it. Suddenly, she smiles and slams him with another hammer strike, saying it's settled. Tomorrow he's going weapon hunting. An adventurer can't be walking around unarmed. Besides, she's busy all day tomorrow with Lord Haven, so training's cancelled. He's a bit confused. Does this girl actually like Lord Haven? Later in the evening, he goes to talk to Aaliyah, who's sitting all downcast. He asks if she's figured out how to take him down yet. She's been watching all the training, but she just replies with a distracted no. He comments that it's weird. She and Fenrir have been watching him all day, and yet they haven't come up with anything. She doesn't really respond, just kind of drifts in that mellow vibe. Then she asks if he needs something. He simply asks if she's free tomorrow. The master. Yeah, I know he's calling her that because he wants to learn how to use positive magic even though he's a creature of darkness, but still, not a fan of it, told him to go find a weapon. So he was thinking of asking Aaliyah to come with him. He doesn't know the shops in the city, and she obviously does. Of course, she lights up immediately, saying she's totally free. She's got some quests, sure, but that's nothing to worry about. Honestly, Takafuji wouldn't be able to do anything without her. She grabs his hand and says it's time to go, while he's just thinking how excited she seems. For some reason, I'm starting to like this little troublemaker. It's rare to actually like the FMCs, the female main characters. They walk through the city, chatting about food, but Takafuji says he wants to focus on weapons. She's clearly flustered, kinda awkward, because really she just wants to enjoy spending time with him. Then she tells him to hurry up. She's taking him to a shop. When they step in, there are a bunch of mediocre weapons on display. But Takafuji, sneaky as always, uses Analyze to check out the real quality. Turns out there are actually a few good pieces hidden in there. A lot of the weapons are decent, but the issue is that they're all magic-based, and he doesn't have this world's mana. Then she points out this massive, skull-themed scythe, saying it's super cute and not even a magical weapon. But he turns it down. Our guy's starting to act all swaggy with her, huh? She's thinking the same, like, yeah, it does suit him. He tells her she should take the chance to buy something too. Her katana draws more attention than it should. She figures he's right. Something more compact and low-key would be better. In her case, all it takes is a glance to the side and she's already found what she wants. But before she can grab it, Takafuji reaches out and says he'll check it first. It's a mithril dagger, exactly the kind of item he hates the most. As usual, it functions as a magic conduit, so yeah, perfect for her. She starts worrying about the price, but he tells her not to stress. Of course he goes out hunting at night. That's why he spends the whole day drinking at the bar, right? Did everyone forget he's a vampire? She's a bit hesitant about the money, but he tells her not to worry. He only spends on booze, so he'll cover it. She's all flustered, head tilted like always. The shopkeeper thanks them for the purchase, and Takafuji says it's a shame. But in the end, he didn't find anything for himself. But she wants to know, does he even realize what that dagger means? He's confused. What are you talking about, weirdo? Meanwhile, she's totally red, head over heels. The girl's gone. So they go back to wandering the shops, check out stores, spiders, a whole city, but still can't find anything good. Until suddenly, they come across the most suspicious-looking place ever, a cave with a straight-faced butler standing out front. The old guy welcomes them in, and our two goofballs are standing there, totally lost. The butler explains that they only make custom weapons there. Whatever they want, they just have to say it, and the weapon will be crafted to match their taste perfectly. Takafuji asks if they can make something that isn't a magic weapon. The butler says that's no issue at all. They'll give it their all to meet their expectations with perfection. And of course, the sneaky boy uses his little analyze ability. And yep, he picks up that the stuff here is high tier. So now he's interested in placing an order. The butler says he's looking forward to it and invites him inside to see all the materials and options available. Takafuji asks if the girl can come in too, and the guy says that's no problem at all. The guy walks into someone else's place and starts telling them to clean better, complaining about all the cobwebs around. The old man calmly explains that the place is like an old person's house. But Takafuji keeps grumbling while the butler just tells him to get inside already. A while later, they're outside again. He mentions it's taking longer than he expected. But Aaliyah says they actually decided pretty quickly. They didn't even have to go to tons of shops. Then she suddenly says the tea is delicious. He just comments that it tastes similar to the tea from the castle. Maybe it's because the atmosphere here is a bit better. Or maybe because she wanted to sit there drinking tea with him. Yeah, we know exactly what kind of tea she wants. Some time passes and she asks why he made his decision so fast. He reveals he used Analyze on the guy and saw that everything there was top-tier quality. Plus, the butler out front convinced him. He could tell someone powerful was behind that place. The only thing that threw him off was that the place was clearly filthy, so the guy obviously wasn't a very good businessman. And oh god, look who shows up again. Fanatique, for the love of get out of here, woman. She comes barging in to bother our boy just as he was enjoying his peaceful tea. He asks what his dear master is doing there. Didn't she have a date? She replies that she already found her way back, but now she wants to know if he's been out here flirting with girls. Aaliyah immediately yells out, saying no, she and Kiri are just companions. Then a masked man tells Fanatique to stop jumping around, and she apologizes, saying she's messing up and really needs to be a model of her god at all times. The guy introduces himself as Mask. He says he's one of the people assigned to keep an eye on Fanatique. Takafuji finds it odd and wants to know why she's being monitored. She explains that the church folks are kind of rigid. They're starting to question her relationship with Kiri. Mask adds that all church women are expected to remain virgins, so Takafuji is considered a threat. He finds it strange that a guy like him, who's already got a beautiful adventurer like the Black Rose, is now apparently chasing after Fanatique too. Rumors about the two of them are spreading all over the city. Takafuji just says people seem to be saying whatever they want. But then Mask goes on to say that he's also interested in the person allied with the Black Rose. He pulls out a letter and reveals he's the #1 fan of her fan club. And now the guy wants our boy to teach him how to attract women like that. My god. He slams his forehead on the table and declares that from now on, Takafuji is his master. Sometime later, the guy is still clinging to him, pestering him for dating tips while the two girls chat off to the side. But then Fanatique asks if it's really true that the famous Black Rose is allied with that drunk. Aaliyah answers yes. Then Fanatique glances to the side, notices the mithril dagger, and asks what that's about. All curious like, girl, mind your own business, please. That's probably what Aaliyah wants to say. But Fanatique seems a little confused. Apparently, in this world, giving someone a mithril dagger is considered a marriage proposal. What the hell? How does that even work? Fanatique, annoying as ever, totally figures it out and says that if Kiri knew what that meant when he gave it to her, that would be hilarious. But she's pretty sure that wasn't the case. She then says the conversation between them is over and that she'll talk to Aaliyah more later. And there she is, Aaliyah, sitting there with that fake little smile saying sure. Said no more? That whole convo was just a pain. I already didn't like Fanatique bothering my waifu, and now we're jumping her in the alley. No hesitation. Takafuji's completely wiped out after a day like this. Meanwhile, Mask is deep in thought about Kiri. He's usually good at reading people, but this one? He still can't figure out what kind of person Kiri actually is. Later, Fanatique waves goodbye to our boy, saying she had a great day and that they'll see each other again. He just mutters that she seems way too excited. He heads home ready to finally get some rest. But of course, night's just getting started for him. Vampire life. Then suddenly, something feels off. He stands frozen in front of the door, and a strange voice suddenly asks how he noticed. Seems he's got good intuition. The voice goes straight into his head, which is seriously creepy. Even so, he walks inside and comes face to face with a mysterious woman who greets him with a nice to meet you, introducing herself as Fulius. Takafuji doesn't look very impressed, just asks if she was the voice in his head. She comments how odd it is that he could sense her presence but doesn't know about spiritual magic. Girl, you're walking around dressed like that. Whoa, ma'am, take care of yourself. What is that outfit? Yo, you two, don't take us down. She says she'd been hearing a lot about him and wanted to see what kind of trash he was. But if he wants, she's willing to teach him spiritual magic. Make it make sense. Then she grabs his hand and tells him to come closer, pulls him in. What the? Warriors, slow down. I want to be Takafuji and not watch him get dragged like that. The girl straight up says he got pulled into bed by a stranger and didn't even resist. His only reply, you're hot. Also, he's got a rule. When a feast presents itself, he devours it. Okay then. Suddenly, she activates interference magic. Thought we were going in that direction for a second, but nope, she had other plans. He thought that with them being so close, her hypnosis wouldn't fail. But she looks at him, gives him a little heart, and says, unfortunately, not tonight. Even so, she plants a kiss on him, and boom. He's out cold, tossed into some other realm. Not quite the rhythm we were expecting. When he wakes up confused, he asks where they are. She explains they're in her mental world, basically a dimension that exists inside each person, and she just keeps growing in power. Vines start sprouting from the ground, and she says that in this space she controls everything. He can't do a thing. For example, she can strip him of his armor, let's say, leaving him spiritually exposed. She then says, well, it gets complicated here. Basically, she's going to drive him mad, but like, in a clean way. She wants to make his soul dependent on her. And yeah, she's going in for the full takeover. Takafuji's trying to resist, but it's not looking easy. She points out that she noticed he's a virgin and wants to know why he has so many attendants but never does anything. Maybe he's just afraid of intimacy. And yeah, he starts radiating dark energy and tells her to shut her mouth, saying fear has nothing to do with it. Suddenly, a magic circle appears behind her, and the world she thought she had full control over, bam, starts falling apart. The plants begin rotting and a hand reaches for her face. Takafuji goes full demonic mode and tells her to shut it again. All that just to avoid being devoured. Okay. The bastard even questions this so-called absolute control of hers. How convenient, because when it comes to domination, he considers himself quite skilled too. Meanwhile, Aaliyah walks up to the door and walks right in, telling him to stop leaving things wide open, when suddenly, yep, she walks in on that scene. The girl is crying black sludge and Takafuji just turns his head like, oh hey Aaliyah, you're back. I thought our waifu was gonna give up, but nope. She pulls out the mithril dagger. God help us. Meanwhile, the other girl, now properly dressed, drops to the floor like a weirdo. And what the? Is that a tongue in his mouth? Nope, he spits it out. That's what that was. Ah, okay, so she must have absorbed that full-size body, but her real form is this tiny one. She was using charm magic to seduce humans and extract information. Ah, crap. I would have spilled everything too. Her name's Sylphie and she's a high-level wind spirit, though she'd been dominated by Lee Nori. She's explaining all this to Aaliyah, who's now smiling like crazy, thinking she's adorable. Takafuji asks if this supreme god is the same one who tried to reach him back at the church. Even without her answering, he's already sure of it. Looks like things are moving faster than he expected if someone's already trying to seduce him like this. But he immediately demands she tell him everything she knows. Otherwise, obviously, her ending won't be pleasant. The poor thing's trembling, totally shaken, until she suddenly regains her composure and says she's a high-level spirit and won't spill everything just like that. He says he's impressed, so she really plans to talk back to him. Fine, he has other ways. He flicks her in the stomach. Actually, not the stomach, because hearts literally fly out. Dear God, Takafuji's gonna get arrested and the girl's turning red, demanding to know what the hell that was. Yep, that's right, girl, cover yourself while there are literal hearts floating in the air. Then he casually throws her to the side. Jesus. Let me just say this. Classic anime madness. Anyway, sometime later, it looks like she ended up guiding them to the nearby forest to get some information. Turns out she needs to be physically present in certain places to use her abilities. What's odd is that her hair turned black, probably due to the domination he used on her. Takafuji finds that fascinating. He never thought his ability, which normally only works on living things, would affect his spirit. It didn't seem as strong as what it does to Aaliyah, but she was still kinda under his control. He asks where spirits usually reside, and she says basically anywhere. She doesn't know of any place where they don't exist. That's terrible news for Takafuji. He can't sense spirits, which means they could be watching him anytime, and he'd never know. So he asks if she can see them. She says she's not sure, but she'll try. With a little wink, boom, they're all revealed. Aaliyah compliments her, saying she's amazing, and she just replies that she already knows. Even if she can't use high-tier magic, she's got a bunch of other skills. For example, she can go totally undetectable if she wants. Takafuji just watches, thinking this could actually be useful. Then Sylphie says that after being dominated, she noticed something new. Instead of regular wind magic, she can now use this weird black wind. It looks more like smoke than wind, and Takafuji immediately recognizes it. He immediately gets an idea and says this might be seriously useful. The scene shifts to a wrecked part of the forest, with everyone stunned that the monster had been torn clean in half. Not clear whether it was Sylphie or Takafuji who did it, but it looks like he's managing to use that mix of her wind and his dark magic. The poor spirit's shocked. She never imagined her power could be used like that. If the creature hadn't been from the demon realm, it would have been completely obliterated. He asks what this demon realm business is. She's like, well, imagine a place full of creatures from the demon world. Very detailed explanation, thanks. What she doesn't understand is why that thing showed up here. This kind of monster shouldn't exist in a forest like this. The king of the night hunt, Takafuji, agrees this doesn't belong here. Aaliyah asks if Sylphie's ever been to the demon realm, and she says no, but she can tell that the spirits in the forest are scared. Aaliyah adds that yeah, it's strange creatures like that would come here on their own, which makes Takafuji wonder, why did that monster show up in this place? And look who it is. Yeah, that guy. The one we were suspicious of. The demon king had a red beard, and so does this guy. Turns out there wasn't just one, but two of them. Sometime later, Takafuji's sword is finally ready, and damn, it looks so basic. Aaliyah's excited, saying it looks easy to use. He agrees it's high quality, almost like his arm naturally extends to the blade's tip. She mentions she heard the craftsman is moving out. That's a shame, considering how good his items are. The butler confirms it. Carrie will be the last person he serves in this city, but he's glad he liked the sword. Maybe they'll meet again somewhere else, but not here. Until next time, he says, yeah, that old man definitely knows something. Outside, Aaliyah's celebrating that they didn't have to pay out of pocket, cause it wasn't cheap. But Takafuji just used Fanatik's money, thankfully. Aaliyah asks if he at least thanked her. He says, not a chance. She's the one who made him buy the weapon. Let her pay for it. And speak of the devil, look who's over there, praying. Unbelievable. Now it's Takafuji walking up to her. He glances over, and it seems like she's checking out his new sword. She says it's definitely high quality and very practical. But he points out that, as she probably noticed, it's not a magical weapon. His body doesn't respond well to that kind of thing. That's why she has to understand, no matter what she teaches him, he's not going to get stronger. The weirdo smiles and asks if he's already tired of training with her. Of course he is. He just says he never liked it in the first place. And honestly, it doesn't make sense to keep doing this. It's just a waste of time. These training sessions are over, and she's just wasting her time too. I thought she'd be upset, but no, she just laughs and says it's true. Even if he spent his entire life training, he'd still stay at the same level. That's why she'll stick by his side, until he does get stronger, because believing in people is her specialty. What the girl, you just got turned down, get away from our boy. He already has FBI Spirit Girl and the clingy one. He mutters that she's just an annoying woman who won't leave him alone. But since that's the case, maybe it wouldn't hurt for him to put in a little more effort too. Next chapter starts in a bar where some guy is staring at a blonde woman saying she has peculiar interests and very moisturized lips. Then he comments on another one saying her body is extremely well trained and there's no way she's still pure. Takafuji is nearby drinking and instantly spits it out, saying the guy really does have a good eye. Mask answers that it's a skill he developed from spending so much time in the church. Since purity is revered there, he ended up getting pretty good at spotting it. And now our boy Takafuji is hanging around with this guy. Strangely enough, the guy was actually really good at conversation. So good, in fact, that Takafuji almost let a few secrets slip here and there. He's starting to wonder if there's a deeper reason behind it all. But hey, the guy's paying for dinner, so whatever. That's when Mask asks about the next one, and look who's walking in. Mask immediately comments that her hip movement is devastating, like it radiates both dignity and despair at the same time. She manages to seem pure, but with a vibe that, yeah, we're not even gonna repeat what he said. Just seeing her on the scoreboard is enough to guess. Takafuji bonks in with 2 branches to the head. Seriously, stop throwing women into the middle of the bar. Y'all try and get banned? The idiots apologize and the girl walks out. Takafuji then asks why Mask's always around him instead of watching over Fanatique. Mask explains that the only reason he's even keeping tabs on her is because Takafuji is around. On top of that, there's some kind of exam coming up. This city is where the other priestesses come to pass their trials, and from the looks of it, Fanatique's about to either beat the brakes off everyone or get wrecked herself. These exams don't play around. Of course, the church is confused about Takafuji's presence since Fanatique, who normally takes things seriously, has been spending all her time with him lately. Takafuji asks if she's strong. Mask says she's reaching the final levels of training and doing her best. Then the door opens again. Speak of the devil. The Demon King himself, the king of booze. Takafuji casually greets the old guy and says he needs a favor. The bearded man says he can clean up his own messes. They get into that half-distracted bar banter, but it's clear the old man already knows Takafuji isn't normal, while our guy is still completely clueless. Suddenly, Mask says he's leaving. Apparently, he doesn't get along with this man. Takafuji just asks him to pass along an apology to Fanatique. Before leaving, the bearded man tells Takafuji to be more careful with the people he associates with. But Takafuji shoots back that he's not taking advice from someone everyone ignores except him. He waves goodbye to Mask. But then Sylphie, speaking from within his shadow, asks how he can even stand being near that guy. Even from where she's hiding, she feels a strong instinctual aversion. She's certain this man is fully aware of the existence of spirits. The old man speaks up, saying Takafuji's new companion must be a high-level spirit. Takafuji realizes this guy isn't hiding anything. The old man just says the timing is perfect. Now he knows Takafuji can see souls and use spiritual abilities. Aaliyah looks confused and Takafuji activates his special vision. What he sees, the name Igno, race, demon, dragon, beast, chimera, homunculus, divine protection, reincarnated, divine punishment. Too much info to process, but one line says it all. Current demon lord. That's the part that really matters. Takafuji's stunned, completely frozen. Then he starts squiding bullets. Aaliyah seems to notice something's off too. And just like that, the demon lord asks if they should step outside, says there aren't too many people around. Might be better for him. And for Takafuji Linori. Wait, he just said his full name. He's not supposed to know that. Aaliyah realizes it instantly. Takafuji stands up and says, sure, it's fine. Aaliyah says she'll go with him, but he gives a direct order for her to stay put. Because of the pact, she's locked in place, unable to move. Out in the forest, the demon lord tells him to relax, asks if the location works. But Takafuji doesn't say a word. Silent, staring. The demon lord admits it's tough to ask someone not to be on edge in a situation like this. Suddenly, he expands his aura. And just like that, the spirit hiding in Takafuji's shadow starts breaking apart. He says he doesn't want any spirits eavesdropping on their conversation. Poor Sylphie. She collapses on the spot. The demon lord apologizes, but says that unfortunately, it's just the two of them now. Then he says Pevoko. He's got a mix of elf ears, droopy demon horns, and even some dog ears. Dude's got everything going on. And he asks Takafuji what comes to mind when looking at him. Naturally, right? We're all thinking the same thing. This guy's a total mess. Just a swirl of everything with a beard slapped on top. The demon lord admits it. He knows his appearance is revolting. He even has a tail. He belongs to the chimera homunculus race. Originally, he was just a regular demon like any other, but he gained this body in his second reincarnation. He figures Takafuji must have come from another world too, which would make this his second life. For the demon lord, it's already the third. He was born in this world as a demon and served as the demon lord 2 generations ago. In his first life, he was already absurdly powerful. He had everything he wanted, killed everyone who got in his way. He took wealth, women, power, laughed in the face of anyone who tried to stop him. After wiping out all other races, he even started killing demons. I killed the dwarves and stole their treasures. I burned the forests of those annoying elves. I wiped out the beastkin and the driving clans too. And I laughed thinking, finally I'm free. I'm happy. Or so he thought. He kept chasing this so-called happiness. But of course the story didn't end in a cheerful way. He died, still standing fighting. Total jigachad. Takafuji asks, have you died? The guy says, no. I never met anyone strong enough to kill me. But I did have a lifespan. And once it ran out, I found myself in a blank white space. A little girl with white hair appeared in front of me. I thought it was the FBI coming for me. But nope, he met God. Takafuji watches him, wondering if it was the same goddess he saw when he arrived in this world. The guy says she introduced herself as the goddess of this world, and immediately, Takafuji knows it's not the same one. His goddess was the goddess of all worlds. Igno explains that according to that goddess, he had simply gone too far. All of his memories, magical power, strength, and talent were stripped away. Then he was reincarnated in a place known as the Abandoned World. Takafuji's eyes narrow. He asks what that is. And the guy says it straight. The world you came from. Our world. Hell. As the name implies, it's a world the gods don't care about. Having lost everything, he was born into a mediocre family, lived a mediocre life, and nothing special ever happened. He tried his best to make things work. Got a job, earned a living, kept his head down to avoid problems. Married a kind woman who, he adds, wasn't particularly beautiful or special. Dude, what a roast. At least they had a kid. The boy was beautiful. Their home and finances were a mess, and every now and then they argued, just like any other family. But it was an honest life. Damn, after living like the devil, the guy spent his next life as your average working man. What a contrast. And yet, that's what made him happy. When he was the demon lord and got everything he wanted, he thought that was happiness. But that life ended without him ever understanding what happiness actually meant. So now, he says, he wants to help others find happiness instead. Takafuji's confused. Who's this guy even talking about? But he just says, I'll do what I can with this body I've been given. Takafuji asks if that means he's going to kill everyone. The man shakes his head. That's not what I meant. He reminds him he's a chimera, a homunculus. When he was summoned, multiple races were used to create his body. In total, he's the product of 6 different species. The 6 same races that divided this world and are still fighting to this day. Takafuji's standing there, a little stunned. This whole story confirms that there really are 6 races. But then he wonders aloud, does this guy even know how the world actually works? And the Demon Lord says it plainly. Of course he does. He's well aware of how he's treated. It becomes clear the moment he walks into a bar. This world was deliberately built in a way that keeps the races from getting along. Maybe Takafuji doesn't fully get it, coming from a world with diverse races and coexistence. Actually, he probably does understand, give him some credit. Still, our boy just wants to know, what's the plan to save everyone? Old man. Igno lights his pipe and says, I don't want to destroy this entire world. Give me your hand. That was not the plan Takafuji expected. Now he's just confused. Igno explains that at first he wasn't sure himself, but after meeting Takafuji, his plans changed. So Takafuji asks if he refuses, is he going to be threatened, punished? But Igno says no. You're free to do whatever you want. Telling you all this now is just my way of paying for your cooperation. The truth is, even if Takafuji doesn't want to help just by staying alive while Igno destroys everything, he'll end up cooperating anyway. As long as he doesn't die and keeps walking through the world, crushing things, ruining lives, he'll be helping by default. That stare he gives Takafuji is heavy, and our guy's just there, speechless. But eventually, he says it's kind of selfish to reveal all that and expect something in return. Though, to be honest, he's not particularly interested in dying for anyone else either. Still, he says that price of cooperation isn't quite enough. He wants more. Igno looks confused. Takafuji says he's been tired ever since arriving in this world. It's time someone paid up. Wait a minute. Is Takafuji gonna dive into the destruction too? Back at the bar, flashback moment, Aaliyah was left behind. She just stood there watching him walk away. Now in the forest, she's all alone, hugging those strong thighs of hers, not understanding why he told her not to follow. In that moment, she realized Lee Nori was more tense than she'd ever seen him. She thought maybe she could be useful, but the very first thing he did was push her away. As she's caught up in her little emotional spiral, a pack of wolves creeps up behind her. But let's be clear, Aaliyah is one of the most dangerous hunters around. And hey, look who shows up, Fanatique. What are you doing here, girl? Before Aaliyah can say anything, Fanatique just hammers one of the wolves into the dirt. The rest scatter like cowards. Aaliyah thanks her, and Fanatique says it's fine. But then she scolds her. Don't you know this is monster territory? Why are you here letting your guard down? Considering Aaliyah's reputation as the Black Rose, there must be something on her mind for her to be this distracted. Aaliyah hesitates, then says it's nothing. Fanatique, however, says something totally unexpected. They're exactly the same, she and Kiri, and suddenly lunges for her. Luckily, Aaliyah dodges in time. What are you doing? Why are you attacking me? Fanatique just grins and says she's curious to test Kiri's famous partner. Plus, she noticed Aaliyah seemed kind of down, so she figured she'd shake things up. Aaliyah dodges again, asking what the hell Fanatique is thinking. But the girl just keeps on going, saying her reflexes are excellent. Then, completely out of nowhere, Fanatique asks, when you were a child, did you believe in God? Aaliyah's confused. Fanatique explains that she didn't. Her mother was deeply religious, never missing a single prayer. But not once did she tell Fanatique to pray. Reverse psychology? Clever old woman. But apparently, the prayer didn't help in the end. One day, they were attacked, and her mother died right in front of her. Surrounded by monsters, certain that she'd die too, she gave up on everything. That was the first time she ever put her hands together and prayed with everything she had. All she wanted in that moment was to go to heaven with her mother. But when she begged for that, God appeared and didn't let her. Incredible. She says she still doesn't know exactly what saved her back then, but because of that experience, she believes in God. That's why she not only prays today, but also spreads the word of Lady God, as she calls her. Fanatique reminds her that she's a strong ally of Kiri, so she should go back and support him. That's why she needs to stay by his side. And then boom, emotional overload. Aaliyah yells that she wants to be by Kiri's side and bam, takes a punch right to the face. Aaliyah asks if she's okay and says her punch packs a serious punch. So serious that, yep, Fanatique is out cold, cause she just wanted a nice warm lap to lay on after all. Fanatique sighs and says, honestly, she's a little frustrated too. She still can't figure Kiri out. She thought since Aaliyah spent more time with him, maybe she had a better idea. Aaliyah responds that she's sure Fanatique can figure it out with the ability she has. Either way, she thanks her for helping. Later that night, under the moonlight, Aaliyah's home relaxing, until suddenly, he arrives. Hey, she jumps startled. He tells her to calm down. He just came through the shadows since it was faster. Also, he's got some important information to share. Aaliyah says she's relieved, looks like nothing happened. He asks if she was worried, and she admits that yeah, she was. If he went out into the forest and died like an idiot, it'd be a lame ending to the story. And besides, even if he died, she's not sure she'd be free. She says all that, but she's smiling. He notices. She then asks why he's so quiet. He says it's nothing. She just seems full of energy, and he needs help with an experiment. Here we go again with these experiments. She asks what it is and why he's smiling like that. He just says, you'll see soon enough. I thought it was going to be some experiment on her, but nope. Next scene, the church. Knew it. Called it from the beginning. This guy's a full-on nun devourer. Turns out Mask is there, asking what he wants. The guy says he wants to know if they found the girl who ran off after the betrayal. Probably talking about Aaliyah, huh? Mask apologizes, saying they'll find her soon, though it's been difficult. The man throws a nun to the floor and tells them to hurry up and bring her in, get her to do the work. For the next ritual, they'll need even more priestesses. He explains that if they want more followers, they need prestige. Mask, still keeping his composure, says he does it all in the name of God. But the guy, he's seriously unsettling. Later on, Mask storms into his own room and slams himself into a chair, muttering that this guy better not think he's getting rid of him that easily. All right, someone please explain the drama here. I'm lost. Meanwhile, in a castle under the moonlight, great, more creepy people showing up. The demon crowd just keeps growing. They're all gathered, saying what's happening isn't enough. This needs to grow more, much more. First step, consume the whole forest. Next morning, apparently Aaliyah was devoured. I never know what's happening when Takafuji says that. Is it a bite in the neck? Something else? Hard to say. She's explaining passively that that's just how Takafuji is. No energy during the day. Sleeps a lot. Sophie can only think that part of the escape plan is clear. If she's going to run, it has to be in the morning. Suddenly, they arrive where they were headed. A critically important destination, cake shop. Yep, filler episode unlocked. Sophie's favorite arc. Aaliyah is shocked to learn Sophie doesn't like cake. She explains she's not like a regular human who needs food, so it makes sense she wouldn't care for it. But seeing that Aaliyah seems a little disappointed, Sophie gives in and says fine, she'll eat it, just so she won't be sad. But yeah, she does like the cake. Clearly, we're deep in filler territory now. Later on, Aaliyah's fired up, saying that one day, she's going to beat that man senseless. Even if he saved her, that doesn't mean she likes being under his control. She's grateful, of course, but that's a separate matter. She's only sticking with him until the day she surpasses him. Sophie doesn't seem all that impressed. She says their relationship is kind of weird. Then suddenly, Fenrir appears and says they need to head to the forest. Or, well, you can't even call it a forest anymore. The place has been completely wiped clean. The two arrive looking around in confusion, wondering how an entire forest could vanish overnight. Not just the trees, but the grass, the monsters, everything. Gone. Fenrir says it's hard to imagine what kind of creature could have done something like this, and Sophie adds that even the spirits are gone. Not the kind of thing any human could pull off. Right away, Aaliyah takes to the skies, saying she's going to investigate. She scans the area from above, flying back and forth. Fenrir asks if she found anything, and she says the signs of destruction are fresher in one direction. If she connects the dots between damaged areas, she might be able to map the path they're taking. But even more important is figuring out who is behind this. Sophie chimes in, saying that the spirits further ahead seemed deeply scared. Maybe it'd be better not to keep going. Aaliyah, of course, ignores that and says she can feel something coming from the mountains. And of course, it's them, the worm things. That same weird girl's creepy centipede monsters. The 15-legged freaks are slithering all over, tearing through the earth and devouring everything. Aaliyah immediately recognizes them. They're the same beasts she ran into in the forest last time. Only now, there are way more. Sophie urges them to retreat into the forest before they're spotted. Watching their path, Aaliyah realizes the direction they're heading in. It's toward a farm she helped during a previous mission. The city of Reigen, the same place where Takafuji bought his weapon. Hold on a second. You remember that blacksmith was leaving town? starting to feel like someone's got insider information. Regan had been attacked by monsters before, but usually there's a warning, a mission, something from the church. But this time, nothing. Not a single heads up, which means whatever's coming isn't part of the system. Sophie asks if maybe they should warn that guy, probably Takafuji. Aaliyah says yes, tells her to go find Lee Nori and bring him here. Fenrir offers to go fetch him, but wants to know what the plan is. Aaliyah thinks about how much Takafuji loves hiding his powers, but there's no way he'll ignore a threat to the kingdom. Remembering the people she's already lost, she decides she'll fight, at least on her own terms. Fenrir warns her that he can smell the strength of the creatures. They're way too powerful. She doesn't stand a chance. But she doesn't care. With a burst of confidence, she draws her sword and says she's not the same as before. Now she can fight. One of the worm beasts notices them, slimy mouth wide open, and lunges. But this time, Aaliyah strikes first. Wait, she launched that attack? She destroyed it? Fenrir watches, surprised, and notes that her power was leaking out even before she unsheathed her sword. Actually, maybe that was a critique. He's saying she's making it too obvious. Might have been the enemy team's red on her. Either way, something got eaten. Still, he compliments her. Even if her technique's immature, he respects her determination to protect others. In this temporary form, he can't stay by her side for long. But as long as he can, he'll lend her his power. Because this land, he used to protect it too. He and his fallen comrades. She comments that out of nowhere, Fenrir grew massive, and he realizes it's the first time he's ever shown his true form. Then the dynamic duo gets to work. Aaliyah goes in first and lands a clean slash. He compliments her, says she's not half bad. She thanks him for the backup. Blades flying, monsters dying. Everything's going fine until they realize the number of enemies is way more than expected. But Fenrir knows if it can reduce the number of monsters, the damage to the region will drop too. Aaliyah immediately catches on and charges forward. They press the attack together. Sophie watches, still surprised. She had no idea these two were this strong. Aaliyah's going all out, slashes left and right, wind magic, everything she's got. Even that cowball spell of hers. But explosions? Nah, her magic's too weak. It keeps getting deflected. Fenrir warns her to conserve her energy. These things seem really resistant to her magic type. And then he says it. Harsh truth incoming. That woman from before, Eiana, yeah, she handled a blade way better. He says Aaliyah needs to learn that kind of refined magical control. Ouch. She used to be a princess, and now they want her to fight like a battle-hardened commander. Still, she knows Fenrir was close to Eiana, so if anyone can teach her, it's him. Another monster comes in hot, and Aaliyah realizes she's gonna have to use less mana and just cut smarter. She lands another hit. Meanwhile, Fenrir is ripping through beasts with pure physical power, but Aaliyah's feeling it. She can tell she doesn't have many slashes left in her. Her magic is running low. It was obvious, but now it really hits her. She still has a long way to go. Fenrir asks her to hang on a bit more, but she's already screaming. Wait, that wasn't a scream of pain. She bit something. Right. She's a vampire. Her fangs work. She doesn't need food, but maybe this was the plan all along, to absorb energy directly. The battle keeps going, but someone's watching and clearly not happy about what she sees. That weird woman from before clenches her fist, and just like that, all the centipede monsters lock in on their location. Hey Kay, don't you dare mess with my waifu. What happened to me? Why am I defending her this hard? Fenrir senses something's off. Sophie shouts for her to be careful. Too late. One of the monsters lunges in and rips off her arm. Please tell me she's like Takafuji and can regenerate. She stands there, shaky, looking at the bloody mess. She hasn't even fully processed it. Then another hit. A tail whip sends her flying. Fenrir manages to soften the blow, but damn, he doesn't stop there. A second monster comes in for a bite. Sophie jumps in with a barrier just in time to stop the next attack. Some of Fenrir's fur floats into the monster's eye, and he gets in a counterbite to the mouth. Brutal. Aaliyah's seriously down. Fenrir looks over and asks if the girl's okay. He begs her to wake up. They need to retreat. Now. Sophie sees it too. If they don't leave soon, she's going to die. And just then, Aaliyah remembers Amanda, her sister, calling out to her. Aaliyah's lying there, barely conscious, staring at the figure. Amanda laughs, saying it looks like she's in the same pathetic situation again. They were always weak. Is she going to abandon her again and survive alone? Amanda had her head cut off and died, so why is she smiling? Aaliyah slowly gets up, saying Amanda would never say something like that. This memory is just a ghost created by her own weakness. And that's fine, because she's still happy to see that face again after so long. She admits, back then, she was too weak to save her. But now, she's changed, and Amanda can watch what happens next. Sophie stares, confused. What's happening? Did she just stand up with a new arm already? Or is she still rocking the stump? Fenrir tells her to get on his back. They have to get out of there before they get surrounded again. But then, Aaliyah barely twitches her foot and a slash shoots through the monster. Fenrir is stunned, and all she says is for them to escape without her. She's staying behind to keep fighting. That's when he tells her being proud is fine, but dying like this would be meaningless. To the entrance. The man himself shows up, and from the way everything pauses, you'd think he was about to hand her arm back right then and there. He reminds her that for a vampire, blood is life. He made the effort to share his with her, so she should try to preserve it a little better. She's clearly overwhelmed, emotional that he came back for her. But he's not exactly sentimental about it. He tells her she completely lost her composure. She didn't even notice what was happening around her. He steps down off a monster, drives his blade in, and finishes it in one clean move. Fenrir cheers, the masters arrived. Takafuji remarks that the joints are the weak points. She should have picked up on that and saved her mana. Finally, he pulls out her arm and tells her to avoid losing limbs from now on. The King of Stitches reattaches it with a little flare, giving her a shot at recovery. But he's not done lecturing. He tells her she made multiple mistakes. The biggest, not abandoning the city where she had the chance. Why was she so emotionally attached to that place? Barely holding herself together, nearly dead, Aaliyah just apologizes. She acted without thinking. He tells her flat out, doesn't matter how many of these things she kills. She's not saving that city. More monsters start showing up, and he says she'll understand why soon enough. The beasts dig into the ground as that creepy girl starts moving her fingers. Suddenly, a shadowy hand emerges. Takafuji's already behind her. He says he knows she's the one behind everything. The girl turns to look, but he's already surrounded her with thread. She's caught. Sophie's confused. 1 second, Linori was right here. Now he's on the other side of the mountain, and it looks like he's captured someone. Linori eyes the girl and uses his ability. He identifies her as Chris Camassel, confirmed through her stats and skills. No doubt about it. She's the one with the power to control magical beasts. The city's attacks have always followed the same pattern, and the Church of Raven is always the one to save the day. Raven, the so-called hero, worshipped like a saint. His church is even seen as sacred ground for female training. It all seems a little too convenient. And now finally, they know who's behind the city's monster attacks. Chris smirks, says he's done his homework, but it's a shame he still doesn't know everything. Takafuji steps forward and says he's got a very helpful informant. The rest, they'll get now. He activates the Mystic Hypnosis Eye. But of course, she smiles. If we're talking magic circles, she knows a few herself. And as always, the guy's eye fails again. This cursed eye never works. Suddenly, a glowing magic circle forms beneath them, and creatures start to rise from the ground. To no one's surprise but Takafuji's, his mental interference doesn't land. Chris just laughs. Now she says now he'll understand her power. She obeys everything that man says. And yeah, she really was dumb enough to cooperate with that guy just for likes on this video that helps Mamoru make more juicy content for his viewers. Activate the cheeky little bell, and I'm out.